There's no time.
The time is
13
o'clock.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even notice you had that shirt on. You haven't worn that in a while.
Haven't worn this in a while, yeah.
So, yeah.
No airborne unit shirt. Soph sent this to me.
Yeah, that's
I think
right.
it was a birthday present, wasn't it? I think it was a birthday
You're
present.
asking me like I would remember that kind of stuff.
I
Time
think it
doesn't
was.
mean anything. It's just a very nebulous
it's
concept.
When you work from the home and you're your
it's
own
one
boss, it's just one long fucking
work
thing.
day.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, it pretty much is. It's pretty. I mean, I'm always thinking about, oh, what's the next video I got to do, or what's the next thing I got to do, and it's like, you know.
While this shit was rolling, while the beginning credits were rolling, we were already talking about what it is we had to do before the New Year's. But maybe we're going to keep it a secret.
No, I don't think it's particularly secret.
Right.
I'm just saying that I was thinking about redoing all the little intros. That's all, and maybe doing like a slightly different logo, like variation on the logo, just kind of refreshing the channel because it's been a while. We've been using the same stuff.
Some of those we've used.
And
for
also,
years.
I wanted to kind of do, like I said, I kind of touched on this a little bit, like in on the Patreon post, because I was just kind of like, I've gotten so behind because of the holidays, and because of my new channels and stuff, that I haven't really been posting as much. Like early access and stuff. So I want to maybe get back to that. Maybe I might do fewer videos a week, but not, and I'm not going to worry about like putting them up. Oh my God, it has to go up on this day, or I'm just going to put them up when they're done. You know what I mean? And not really worry about that kind of stuff. And also I kind of wanted to like streamline kind of stuff. Cause I feel like, cause remember when we first started, like, for example, when we first started doing the matinee, series, we started doing that as separate from the movie retrospective series because the movie retrospective series was like recorded and that was just like one a week that everybody voted on, which is fine. But like when we first started doing the matinee show, it was when we were going to the theater and then we were like filming our reactions to the movies like right after we saw them. And so we just kind of continued it like that, even though we weren't really doing it like that anymore. And then I was thinking the other day, it's like, I kind of felt like for a while we made the distinction, the matinee we'll talk about new movies and then retrospective we'll talk about old movies. But now it's just kind of like we just talk about whatever, like whether they're new or old, like whichever one we happen to watch. Yeah. So I'm like, I just kind of feel like the distinction between those two series has disappeared. Mm-hmm. So I might just kind of lump everything together into like, hey, it's a movie review, like new, old, whatever the fuck we watched. Because I kind of feel like I don't make that distinction. We shouldn't make that distinction anymore. So I might just do that. I mean, like I said, it's not really going to make a lot of difference to people watching it. It'll just have like it'll just maybe be in a different playlist and have like a different intro. That's all. You know what I'm saying? And then some might be live or some might be recorded, like whichever ones we do. So, you know, I'm just saying.
It's all good.
It's all good.
I'm going to let you handle it.
Well,
I'm gonna let her handle it.
Isn't that what always happens?
Yeah, well,
that's what always happens.
You think about it more than me. You know the data, the metrics and everything better. It's just better to do it that way.
Well, and I kind of like, in some ways I like that the channel grew like organically and then we're just like, oh, we added this and we added that. But then like after a while, I'm just kind of like, oh my God, like all this stuff is just so disorganized and all over the place and it causes me great anxiety. Yeah. So I like kind of prefer things just like, hey, this is a movie review. Hey, this is a book review. You know, and I have like little different intros for each of those things, but
we just did what everybody else did though. The show just changed with the times.
Yeah.
And whatever market forces were dictating to us. What worked, we kept. What didn't work, we got rid of. So that's just what everybody else does. So remember, we did some shit we did some of the shows that were almost like screensavers. Remember, it was all written with relaxing music. Those were cool, but they didn't get enough hits. They were kind of out of date when we did them. That was working a couple years before that. It's just things go in and out of style. You just got to find out. And then it came long format fucking live streaming came into style, and that was the way to go. Because shit, we can interact now, get super chats, and the shows are a lot more spontaneous. It's less work than doing slideshows.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a lot of work, but it's a lot less work than it was.
Slideshow was tearing her up, man.
Yeah.
She spent all day just getting fucking photos and finding photos.
And cropping them and editing them.
So.
And scrolling them out and everything like that.
So that was kind of like, those were cool shows, but we had to change with the times, you know.
That's true.
Other people were doing that in that era, and then they stopped also. It's just because live streaming is where it was at. That's what we got the greatest response from.
Yeah.
And we started as a fucking podcast.
Yeah.
And when we started as a podcast, we got a lot of fucking hits on the podcast. On the old network we were at, we were getting 50,000 views or downloads a day or a month.
Like that, something like that.
Per episode. But there was no interaction, and we never saw a dime. So
not really.
So it didn't matter.
Yeah. That's the thing.
YouTube was where it was at, but we kept the podcast name.
Yeah. So that was another thing. If I redo the logo, I might just take that out.
Take podcast off. Yeah.
I mean, technically, I still do upload just an audio-only version of it that goes to like various like Podbean and stuff like that, like in iTunes if people want to listen to it, just audio.
We could call it 13 o'clock mystery or some shit like that. 13 o'clock.
Well, I mean, I kind of feel like it should just be 13 o'clock.
13 o'clock, yeah.
Just that's what everybody knows it as.
13 o'clock true crime mystery, some shit like that.
Yeah, but like I said, we talk about true crime. We talk about all this. I mean,
everything.
Like today, this is a true crime show, kind of, and also kind of. And honestly, like this, I already know because of this topic, this is probably going to get demonetized. I don't know about like demonetized, but it'll for sure like be limited advertising because a lot of advertisers don't want to be on a video about terrorism. So there's that.
You're okay.
But you know what I mean? I don't have too much trouble with a lot of the topics, but anytime like something's like true crime, like serial killers, it's like really egregious, then sometimes you'll have like limited. I don't think I've ever had ads taken off completely, but sometimes like there's a lot of advertisers that would prefer not to be on shows that are about sensitive. Yeah, like shows that are about like serial killers and stuff like that. Which, like I said, I don't really care. But
and the fucking there were and those same fucking murders were covered on network television. They'll do whole documentaries. They'll do news reports on the shit, and they would have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And the thing about it was that I went on YouTube, and they had like there's tons of like documentaries about Timothy McVeigh on there
because it's them talking about it. See. That's what it is.
Well, I mean, other people have uploaded stuff that they recorded from like PBS or whatever. Right. Like, I don't think like a couple of them were from the official channels, but a lot of them were just people that had taped it like back in the 90s.
That old mainstream corporate format. They felt sanctimonious about their shit. Only they could advertise on that. They didn't want anybody else fucking talking about those cases. They had having to be official. Yeah, right.
Well, like I said, I kind of feel like it's not even people doing it because a lot of times like
algorithms doing it.
That's what I mean. So because a lot of times like I'll watch because a lot of times for preparations of these shows like I'll watch other people's documentaries about and some of them have ads and some of them don't. Like it doesn't really seem doesn't really seem to be any logic to it.
It's AI doing it, but it was fucking humans that told the AI to do it. See, it's just fuck them. You know the deal.
Tyler the guy said, I hope y'all touch on the third bomber theory. That's the most interesting part in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, we might touch on that a little bit, but I don't really know if there was one or not.
Yeah, they even back in the day, they thought that some of the guys got away.
Well, the one guy that they thought was the third guy that they called like John Doe number 2, they figured out who that guy was, and it wasn't like, it was just like an innocent dude.
Okay, I remember when all this happened.
That just happened to be there the day before. It was like a mix-up or something like that. But I don't know. Like I'm not saying there weren't other people involved. I'm just saying that particular guy that they thought was John Doe number 2 was not involved.
This is a good case, man, because this is kind of a monument to how much things have changed. Okay. It used to be guys thought that if you took direct action against a political opponent and did something like this, you'd be able to get your message out. And really, because they didn't have internet, they did kind of get their message out when they did this. But it always came back to fucking haunt you. It always kind of, this isn't the really way you want to deal with problems. Nowadays, if you want to fuck up the government and screw up some of their fucking corrupt plans, like this had a lot to do with Waco, okay? Nowadays, all you do is just start a YouTube channel and make fun of them. They can't stand being ridiculed and made fun of. All right, because they take themselves very seriously. And you'll do more damage to them that way in information war and propaganda than you would ever destroying a concrete building and accidentally blowing up a bunch of kids at a daycare center.
Yeah, and a bunch of adults too.
Yeah, and a bunch of...
So,
So this kind of thing, of what these guys did, was obsolete.
Well, the
was
thing about
obsolete
it, and I
back
was
then.
thinking about this while I was like reading, I was like, it's not only monstrous and morally repugnant, obviously, but it's also ineffective.
Yeah, it's ineffective. It doesn't achieve the desired goal.
Right, but yeah,
almost
that's
never
what I
does.
mean. I'm not saying I'd agree with the dude because I don't. I'm just saying that if you had some views and you wanted like to call attention to something or whatever, this ain't the way to go about
Right,
it.
yeah. Well, I see, the thing is I agree with what they were mad at. All right, which was they were mad about what the ATF did to Waco.
Well, yeah, that was fucked up.
What they did was fucked up. But this isn't how you deal with it.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
it's like you doing
right,
that doesn't
right.
make that any less fucked up,
Right.
and it's not gonna, you know what I
Right.
mean? It's not solving anything.
Right. It was just kind of an out-of-date way of dealing with the problems, and it always backfires on the cause. A lot more effective nowadays. Well, they didn't have the internet back then.
Well, yeah, this was the 90s.
But
like,
now-
mid 90s, early 90s.
Nowadays, the advent of social media has kind of made attacks like this obsolete, which is good because people don't die. Now you can just say what you want to say, and if it's a popular belief, you can change things. Okay. Governments are corrupt. They're fucking tyrannical. They do stupid shit because they want to get promoted, and the main goal of any government is to grow. To grow its power and to grow its ability to make money and to pay their friends. That's really all it is. And to protect the ruling class that keeps them in business. That's his purpose. It doesn't have anything to do with protecting you or to make your life easier. They will ship your jobs overseas. They'll sacrifice you. They'll throw you into the jaws of a fucking war machine to fight a war that really only benefits guys at the very top. The whole thing is fucking crooked. So yeah, you should be able to get that message out. This is not how you do it. You don't do it by blowing up a government building. It's just a building. They'll build another one. And then they'll take what happened and they'll flip it around and say how that these people are all terrorists. Anybody who disagrees with us is a terrorist. Anybody that says no to us is a terrorist. Bend over. That's what it becomes. So you don't want to do it this way. Best way to do it is just make fun of them. Call them out for what they do and make fun of them, ridicule. And they can't stand that. That really hurts their butts. They get butt hurt. Because they come out of these institutions and they feel very serious about themselves and their authority. There's other losers, you know. Government bureaucrats are they can't survive in the fucking real world. They're the rich kid flunkies, come out of universities, give these paper pushing jobs, no skills to speak of, no talent. They're just fucking pressing buttons and filling out fucking paperwork and telling other people what to do and trying to expand their department and make sure that the budget is fulfilled. I know, I was there, you know. There's nothing to this. But this is not how you fight them. You fight them in law, in courts, in the court of public opinion. That's how you do it. Voting. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I'm never sure when you're done.
No, I'm sitting here trying to fill time, man.
You should probably
Yeah.
probably like do like on the CB and be like, you know,
What is that?
and say when you're done.
Over.
Yeah, so I know when you're done talking. What's up, Dave? He's here. He says, my shop sells machetes, axes, tarps, and shovels. Serial psycho killer supply store. See, there you go. Well, you know.
You gonna get flagged?
Too late. So like we already got flagged. I already like I wanted to do this topic. Now somebody said we should do Ruby Ridge as well because that was another one that Timothy McVeigh was mad about. I think we did do a show on Waco, did we not? I'm 99%
We
sure
sat here and fucking talk about how they fucked that up.
that we did a show about Waco, but we haven't done Ruby Ridge though because that was
Right.
another thing
That's
that
another
I
one
mean
they
I
fucked
want to
up.
you know I don't want to get too much into that, but that is one thing that
Yeah.
that Timothy McVeigh was like
He was mad about that too.
Was mad about that too.
Right.
Because they happen like not that kind
Yeah.
of close in time. You
Yeah,
know?
it was ATF stepping out. The ATF trying to justify its existence. They couldn't find any bad guys. They'd make a bad guy. A lot of the guys they were fucking with were kind of bad, but they went out of their way to make that a violent confrontation. There could have been a much easier way. They were trying to have a spectacular raids and spectacular something that looked good on film so they could justify their existence. That's really all it was. They didn't have to burn down fucking Waco. They didn't have to break their way into the fucking Branch Davidian compound and fucking arrest it. He went into town every day. All they had to do was just wait for him at the store, and they could have arrested him there. But that's not what they wanted. They wanted a big raid. They had to justify all that equipment and that huge budget. And that dude that they did up at fucking Ruby Ridge, they had to badger him, and he was a poor dude. They had to badger him to make a sawed-off shotgun so he could sell it to them for only a couple $100 so they could arrest him and justify their existence. And he was like, that's illegal. You know, he didn't want to do it. But they made him do it. They kept fucking enticing him. So what do? Show up and they shoot his dog and they shoot his fucking his wife that was while she was carrying a baby. You know, just bad.
Yeah, that was Ruby Ridge.
Ruby Ridge, yeah. Just fucking bad way of doing it when you could have just arrested that dude when he went into town or something.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, obviously it's not crazy to be mad about that because both of those things were monumental shit shows.
Yeah.
But doing what Timothy McVeigh did was not ideal.
No, that's not the proper response.
Let's say that. It wasn't ideal. Let's see.
They couldn't have foreseen the internet, though. So,
well, yeah. I mean, you know, that's just kind of like
they would have been much better. It would have been much more effective to basically made a self-printed fanzine or a magazine or something like that, printed out on repeatograph, and then just, you know, or have a radio show. Back in those days, you could have a radio show. And
yeah, I mean, I feel like he did have a little bit of a network in the sense that, you know, he would go around the country to like gun shows and stuff like that and like talk to people. So there was kind of like a loose network of people that he knew, but it wasn't like super organized or anything like that.
They should have done something. He should have done something more like that, you know. Even though Alex Jones, he started on radio, and he was just pointing out inconsistencies and how these dudes actually operate. And he was what they call a conspiracy theorist. And then years later, all those fucking things turned out not to be conspiracies. They were real, you know. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it when they found that island, and it turned out that shit was true. He was talking about that for years, Epstein's Island. And after that, I started paying attention. But, you know, say what you will.
Bridget says, Tom, you're looking good, more healthy. Jenny, what's the necklace you're wearing today? It's just a little skull with like a little bat and a little black gem on it. That's what. Yeah, we definitely covered Waco. I thought we had.
Yeah.
Tom Sykes said the 80s TV show MacGyver had an episode before this case happened that involved box trucks with bombs in them. I think I kind of vaguely remember that, actually. Yeah, John Smith said these days he would have a YouTube channel. Yeah, exactly.
Right, that's all you have to do. Information is a far more... When you look at warfare, you know, and I came up, you know, in fucking good military academies and had my own military career and did weird shit as contractors. The war is always information. Information is... And public opinion. That's really where the power is. That's why the CIA was so fucking hell-bent on mind control, you know, MK Ultra. You can't win a war until someone believes that they're defeated. If not, they just continue to fight. And if you can control their opinions, you never have to fight that fight to begin with. So you can do this through people's information, sources of their information, the flow of information. With that, you can achieve mind control. It's known as propaganda. So, yeah, now that propaganda is becoming, or the flow of information is a lot more democratized, it's difficult for them to use propaganda like they used to. And so that was McVeigh's frustration. We're going to get into it, though. But he did totally the wrong thing. He wanted this big, spectacular event, you know, with an explosion, and it would be, and everybody would hear about it, and there would be some kind of uprising. It never goes down that way.
He seemed to legitimately think that there would be an uprising of people that like agreed with him.
All you got to do is just look at the other big explosions that happened, and there's no uprising. So this is a very old school, like 1920s thinking. You know, that's not what happens. You just have to study what happened before to know that. He went through all that trouble, you know, building all that shit and spending all that money and doing that mission, and there was no effect, really. Not really.
I mean, not anything that he wanted.
No.
That's what I mean. This kind of shit is like never.
Yeah, well, it didn't cause the ATF to be abolished.
Right.
You know?
It's like I'm not really sure like
Right.
what he thought was gonna happen. Like nothing he thought was gonna happen happened.
No.
John Smith said, I thought McVeigh started off selling the Turner Diaries at gun shows. He did, yeah.
Probably did.
And actually, matter of fact, the idea for doing what he did at Oklahoma City, he got it like pretty much word for word from the Turner Diaries. That's like the opening scene of that is like like a federal building that somebody blows up like with a fucking truck bomb.
If you guys know the Turner Diaries,
I might, I've got a thing about that. Like I'll talk about that later on.
Yeah, there's nothing to it. It's bullshit. And what's talked about in general, I haven't read it, but I've seen synopses of it. What's in the Turner Diaries wouldn't work. Most of it wouldn't work today. It's very old fashioned. It was before social media.
Yeah, well, it was published in 1978.
Yeah.
By a neo-Nazi, as a matter of fact. But
it was about resistance, though. It wasn't so much.
I mean,
about
it's a fictional novel, it's
kind of a how-to kind of a thing.
Right. In the same way that like maybe like Ayn Rand or something like that is, where she writes like fictional novels, but it's kind of like a polemic at the same time. It was kind of like that.
Yeah, it wouldn't work today, though. That kind of stuff doesn't work. Or it would be very inefficient. You no.
Bridget said, I remember when I learned it was an American, Timothy McVeigh, I was in shock. I was in the delusion that American wouldn't do this to their own country. Yeah, well.
Yeah. Well, it was against the federal government. And
I think and the thing about it was that when it first happened, immediately everyone thought it was, Islamic terrorism because, there had been an event like that. Because, I don't know if people that are really young know, but the World Trade Center was bombed in 1993.
Yeah.
So people were still like thinking about that.
As soon as they said it was in ATF headquarters, I immediately knew it was an American.
Well, they caught him like almost immediately.
Yeah, I knew exactly. But they were talking about it as it was happening, though. And it says, "Oh, ATF? Okay, yeah, I know what they're mad at. They're mad over the gun bans, and they're mad over fucking Waco, and because I was big into the fucking gun scene, fucking subscriptions to guns and ammo, and those are all real old school stuff, and fucking some of the military and law enforcement weapons magazines. I was just out of the Army at that time, and in the gun scene, the Second Amendment scene, everybody was mad about what the ATF was doing, and there was a big argument of whether or not it was fucking kind of constitutional what they were doing, because a lot of what they were doing was based on laws that were passed in the 1920s that were now a moot point, this has to do with suppressors and full auto stuff and shit that really should have been constitutional. But as soon as they said it was an ATF headquarters, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what this is. And then it turned out, yep, that's exactly what it was. It was a dumb idea, though.
Well, it wasn't just the thing about that building was it wasn't just ATF. It was a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, but they didn't mention that until later.
It was a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, it was a building that had a bunch of stuff in it, but
it was a bunch of different.
But they announced it as it was an ATF fucking building, which
I mean that was in there, but there was a bunch of other offices in there. Too.
I don't think McVeigh realized that there was other stuff in there.
Well, see,
I think he just thought it was ATF.
I'm not so sure about that because I watched a couple documentaries about it and I was like reading some stuff about it. And McVeigh, I mean, he's dead now. They executed him in 2001. But he kind of like, I don't know if he waffled, but he did kind of like say it's like, oh, well, I didn't know there was like a daycare in there, for example. I would have picked another place if I'd known that. However, I have seen some like kind of legitimate sources that said him and his little bro there, Terry Nichols, that they actually did a tour of the building prior to doing it. And so they knew that there was a daycare in there. And actually Terry Nichols said later that, we knew there was a daycare in there and we didn't care.
Well, they thought they didn't think anybody'd be in there because I think of the timing of the attack. And
it was like 9 in the morning.
Yeah.
It was a Wednesday.
I didn't think, from what I remember, he said he didn't think there'd be little kids in there. But there was. Because they'd already showed up at work. Didn't matter. Look, it didn't matter because they didn't care. Okay? They were trying to destroy an enemy building. These are ex-U.S. military guys. The units that they worked with and the army that they were in were dropping fire on little children going back from the fucking 1940s.
Right, but like I said, that's kind of like, but he was trying to make a moral equivalence, which, like I said,
I think that was afterwards.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, that's bad. But like you doing that doesn't make it better.
At the time, the military thinking was, well, yeah, that's children, but those are children of the enemy. Let them burn.
That's the same kind of shit that he said.
Right. That's what the thinking would be, and that's pretty standard for military thinking. Yeah, those are children, but that's the enemy's children. That's not my children. Burn them up.
Yeah, that's what he thought. Well, he said almost exact. Well, I'm not that exact same thing, but the same sentiment.
Well, when I was in, one of the things that would happen during raids or fucking action against the enemy at the objective. In other words, you're inside the heart of the enemy building. The main goal is to maximize damage and physical trauma on the enemy. Okay, which people will be like, well, what does that mean? That means shooting women and children first. That means fucking making sure no one survives. It's overwhelming force against the enemy. That's what it means. Anybody in that objective is dead. Once the attack is called over, you go in and see if there are any survivors. But they've told you to double tap in the kill zone, so there aren't going to be any survivors because you can't carry them with you. You're an airborne unit. What are you going to do? Drag enemy wounded around? You got another place to attack. You can't take any prisoners. This was, of course, 90s and earlier. I don't know how they are now, but back in the day, airborne infantry and air assault infantry just didn't take prisoners. You just read the way ambushes were done and fucking planned attacks are done. There would be no prisoners or enemy wounded. You can't take them anywhere. You don't have the ability. So, and the idea is to terrorize and kill and to terrorize the enemy. That's what it is. And to make warfare friendly or nice, you're just fooling yourself. That's not what happens. Not in real life. And, Americans like to think that we're the good guys. We were never really the good guys. Even going back to World War II, we were machine gun and German prisoners.
Well, no one's entirely good guys.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the way shit is.
They'd hand out cigarettes every now and then. We took a lot of prisoners, but there were certain times when American units couldn't take prisoners. They'd hand out fucking cigarettes to capture German guys, let them smoke a cigarette. They didn't tell them anything, and somebody else come along with a fucking Thompson machine gun and mow them down because you had to keep moving. You couldn't take them with you, and there's no way to send them back. But it depended on where they were. And on those Japanese islands, they were ordered not to take prisoners at all, going up through those island chains, because you couldn't take them back on the boat with you, so they couldn't. It was just liquidation. So people have to grow up about the mentality. But yeah, these guys they blew that building up. And of course they admitted it. They didn't really care who was in it, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Later on, McVeigh said, well, I probably wouldn't have, knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't have blown the building up. I would have gone on a campaign of assassination against officials. That's what he
said later.
Right,
that he said that he would have done that instead. I mean, I kind of feel like that's what he was planning at first.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he just thought it was like too hard or too complicated or something.
It's hard, it's complicated, but in the grand scheme of things, that would have been more effective, probably.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but yeah. Well, the thing about it is that I don't advocate doing that ever. I'm just saying that from a goal-oriented standpoint, blowing up a bunch of innocent people who had nothing to do with anything that you're mad about is never going to be the right solution.
No. It's a bunch of people that aren't directly connected with
it's
the
like,
problem.
What the fuck? Those people are just people that are just like working in an office. They don't know nothing about what you're mad about.
And then it's just a concrete building. So
that could have been me. That could have been you. That could have been any of y'all.
And you destroyed a concrete building. Big fucking deal. Nowadays, the government works just all online. They're not even going to those concrete buildings. They're all just fucking working from home on their laptops. You go to Washington, D.C., it's a ghost town. They don't go over there. They do it all from home. So now there's nowhere to attack. Actually, a very good security when you think about it. There's no reason for those buildings in Washington, D.C. anymore.
Well, in some ways, I think it's kind of like safer to be like, because everyone's just kind of like
they're spread out
into the like.
They're spread out. You don't know who's who. And there's no paper anymore for paperwork. It's all fucking digital data. So there's no reason for buildings. Those buildings were about storing paper with fucking filing cabinets and fucking shit, Xerox machines and shit. That's all gone.
John Smith said, wasn't he caught so quick due to a faulty license plate or something? Yeah, he was speeding, and I think the car didn't even have a license plate. Yeah. And then when he got pulled over, like, he very, very clearly had a concealed weapon. Yeah. And he kind of, like, low-key threatened the cop. Yeah. So yeah, he got arrested. And then, like, later on, they'd found in the explosion, which we'll get into it a little bit, but they found, like, from the Ryder Reynolds, because it was a rental truck, and somebody at the rental truck place, like, the Ryder place, like, recognized him. Like, they drew a sketch, and they, kind of, like, put it together.
Guess what? What? Those hams that we had for Christmas? Yeah. They were still on sale down there. Got fucking 3 more.
Did you really?
Yes.
Oh, that's what you did.
One of them's a big full one. The other 2 are fucking half a hams.
Okay. Why did we eat that one?
They were only $10 a ham. You think I'm going to give up that? But they were like $1.30 a pound? Oh, no. I'm going to buy that shit.
Well, yeah.
Or $1.25. $1.25.
See, that's kind of the nice thing about, like, the holidays around here. It's like Publix and stuff like that. They're just like, please take all the turkeys and hams. They're free. Yes. Almost.
Yeah. So I got actually 2 huge ones, but it's in 4 pieces. And then I got that bread flour rising down there, heavy bread flour, and we'll make a pizza after the show. Yeah, so we get into this bitch now. By the time this is over,
he's already planning food after.
I'll go out there and I'll fucking.
That's good because all I've had today was like a teeny little ham sandwich and a granola bar. Yeah, got and you 2 cups of coffee.
Got you on calorie restrictions.
You don't got me on anything. I got her on.
She's fucking slimming down like that. The fucking boobs are popping out on the front. She's looking good. I'm gonna have to take a photograph. We're gonna do a photo shoot soon.
Whatever.
We're gonna do a photo shoot. Yeah. You don't want to do a photo shoot?
You're a ridiculous person.
Of course I'm ridiculous.
Yeah, you're ridiculous.
Yeah, she loves this shit. Do a photo shoot, so.
Okay, whatever. Yeah. Bridget says, I'm one of those OG listeners that listen on podcasts. I started with the Long Island serial killer. Wow, that was a long time ago.
Oh, man.
I missed most of the lives, but I always watch and like the replay. Well, thank you very, very much. Yeah, I mean, we like went back and forth about when is the best time to live stream, because I know that obviously everyone's not in the same time zone as us. We're like Eastern Standard Time because we're on the East Coast. But, so I know everybody can't watch us live, but we appreciate everybody that drops by to see us.
Yeah, we need to change it up every now and then, I think, so that way we can catch some more.
I have kind of thought about that, like maybe doing like some surprise ones or...
Because I bet you there's people in other time zones just waiting to give us a fucking super chat.
Well, what? Maybe like one... Like one day we're like wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Okay, we're doing
like I did this morning because
we're getting super chats from China and shit.
Because they're like, oh my god, we never catch you guys live. I roll out of bed with my slippers and shit on, being like, what? Hey, what's up, you guys? Like with no makeup or anything. Yeah, nobody needs to see that. Bridget says, I don't want to get Tom on a tangent. As too late. But what sweets did you make? Like, I guess, like, maybe...
we had pumpkin pies.
Yeah, we had pumpkin pies.
Yeah, and
we were thinking about making cookies, but we haven't done it yet.
I got cookie stuff to make.
We got cookie stuff.
I got all kinds of cookies. And then I got a bunch of sweet potatoes that I grew from out and back. I was going to make a sweet potato pie, too. Because some of them are kind of substandard. They're not quite big enough to be served as a sweet potato. They're just kind of like... Because I took them 30 days out early. I took them out of the ground early. When I was like, man, some of them were big and some of them were small. I was going, what the fuck's going on here? And then I looked into it later. It said when the weather was cold, because it was later on in the season, they said let them sit in there another month or so. So for the temperature, I took them out too early for the season. But I'll know next time, Let them stay in there and grow.
Yeah, you got to like keep up on all that.
So the little ones that aren't really worthy of fucking serving, I'll boil them and turn them into a sweet potato pie.
Yeah, there you go.
If you guys never had sweet potato pie, it's kind of like pumpkin pie. Better. I think it's better. Although I like them both, but same spicing and everything.
I'm slightly more team pumpkin pie, but sweet potato pie is good too.
Sweet potato pie is pretty fucking good.
Well, it is. Yeah, I'm not saying that. I mean, pretty much any kind of pie is good. I'm not proud. I'll eat pretty much any kind of dessert you set in front of me, honestly, with very, very few exceptions. John Smith said, "This is my just before bedtime drinking hot chocolate show." Oh, okay. Aw, that's cool. Bridget said, Jenny, tell Tom I'm in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Okay, yeah. I hear you.
Lion X Warrior said, "Don't show me Jenny's tits popping out. This old man will have a heart attack."
Oh no, we're gonna show that. We're gonna do a photo shoot. It's almost gonna be kind of like, it won't be nude, but it'll be like a fucking PR shots for a porn star or something. Fucking a lot of leg, booty.
See, Tom's already imagining.
I gotta shit imagine we're gonna have a fucking sexy outfit and everything. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to do some heavy Photoshop.
No, not that bad.
Heavy Photoshop.
No. We haven't done a photo shoot in a while.
Well, yeah, I know. I can't remember the last one we did.
Because I want to do a Bane photo shoot.
Okay.
I want to do several photo shoots. Do some muscle photo shoots. We'll get the shit right. I'm just gonna but maybe like in another 6 months. I'm gonna do some more stuff before that. I want to gain like another 3 or 4 or 5 pounds, somewhere around that. We're gonna see how I look.
All
I'm
right.
gonna do some more trend.
Okay.
All right, I'm a hide on that trend. We're gonna see. I think maybe I built up a resistance to it by now. I'll see what I feel like on it.
Zach says, my first episode of you guys was the one you did right after they caught D'Angelo back in spring 2018. For some reason, I thought you'd been around longer than that.
No, it's about when he started talking.
That seemed recent, but I guess it was like,
No,
that's not recent. That's like 4 years ago now. It seemed like just the other day.
That was about
That's
the time,
what happens when you get old.
That was about the time Zach started talking and introducing himself. That's when I started fucking with him. And then he couldn't leave the show after that when I'm fucking with him.
I got a message like not too long before the show that said that they had been on one of our old creepy disappearances shows.
Yeah.
I think we talked about, who's that guy? What I think his last name was Hoagland, who was like a guy that disappeared and was like this mysterious case. I think they found that guy. So somebody was saying, "Oh, you should like do an update." So we might have to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Hoagland.
Yeah. Not the guy that the face on Mars guy.
Yeah.
Not that
Yeah.
guy.
So
This was
Hoagland? What are you talking about?
No, this was a guy named, I think his name was Robert Hoagland.
Okay.
Like, and he was like it was like a mysterious like disappearance.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And we did a show, one of our creepy disappearances, because remember we would do like, I think we did 4 or 5 volumes of those.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think they found him.
All right.
So, you know. Tom is slowly turning into a white version of The Rock, says Tyler the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I am becoming the vanilla gorilla.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fucking honky Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's coming.
I still need to do a Honky Kong shirt. I want to do like a little Tom cartoon, like in like 8-bit.
If you make it, I'll fucking do a shirt for it. It's got to look cool though.
Well, yeah, I know.
Honky Kong,
like I
yeah.
said, that'll take a while. Like,
And then I
want
to
draw that.
And then the vanilla gorilla shirt would be cool too.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Yeah.
That would have to be like a cartoon that looked kind of like Magilla Gorilla or
Yeah.
Grape Ape or something.
Right.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Exactly. With a cool font, something that people can read with the gorilla on it.
But it would have to look like you.
Yeah. No, you can't make it look like me. You want to, because
But that's like
it's
the
a
whole part of
cartoon,
the
it
joke,
won't
though.
work. It won't work.
Well, yeah, with like a cartoon version of you.
Now
That's what I mean.
Saying the white version of The Rock, I'm actually, according to photographs and what people said, more like Stone Cold Steve Austin, is what they've been saying. And I looked at the photograph of the guy with his beard and shit and his bald, and I said, yeah, okay, that's what you're talking about. More like Stone Cold Steve. But you have to understand something. Those dudes are like 6 foot fucking 3, 6'2", 6'4". They're much bigger than me. The proportions are different. I'm only 5'6". I only weigh about 185 pounds. All right. Those dudes are fucking way over like 230. You know, they're bigger dudes. You put me next to them, I'd look small.
Well, shit. When I put my super tall boots on, I'm like an inch taller than you.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty short.
Right.
I'm only 5'3".
Yeah. And but
I have really tall boots.
The only other guy that was kind of like me was Franco Colombo. He weighed 200 pounds. It was Arnold's best friend. He was about 5'4", 200 pounds, probably 5% body fat. And he was fucking huge. And he was stronger than Arnold. He could run with refrigerators and shit like that. I wished I looked like fucking Franco Colombo. Proportion-wise, I'm a little bit... Just proportionally, I'm a little bit bigger than... I'm a little bit bigger than Vin Diesel. About like that. I'm not as big as those bodybuilders you're talking about. About like Vin Diesel. I'm bigger than Tom Hardy, proportionally. So I'm not that big.
John Smith said, my life ambition is to disappear in a mysterious way.
Yeah. Lion Wars.
Well, like on purpose or...
Yeah.
I hope so, because it's like, I don't want like something bad to happen to you. And like nobody figures it out.
Lions Workers, Vanilla Gorilla, Honky Kong, stop, Tom, laughing my ass off. Yeah. Yeah. That's old, man. I came up with that. How long ago was that? The Vanilla Gorilla?
A long time ago.
It was a long time.
That was like years ago.
Vanilla Gorilla and Honky Kong.
I think Honky Kong is my favorite.
Honky Kong, yeah.
That's that and the abdominal
snowman. That was when I
Abdominal
that's when I fucking had a bigger belly. That was before I started working out. I called myself the abdominal snowman. I can tell a story about that, but I'm not going to tell a story right now.
I mean, you might have told it before, but yeah, it's kind of a
I
dirty,
told it
it's kind of a dirty story.
Yeah, me and Jen were in bed together at the hotel, and Jen and Dimitri, our friends, were in the bed next to us. And this was after
we were at the vampire ball.
At the vampire ball.
At the castle in Tampa.
And I'm fucking trying to get it on and shit. And Jen and Dimitri in the bed next to us fucking laughing and giggling. And I had the fucking sheet around me, and I'm between Jenny's legs, and I fucking come up like they're going,
we were all very drunk.
Yeah, Dimitri's like, "What's wrong, Tom? What's wrong?" And I go, "I'm the abdominal snowman." And they started fucking laughing and shit. This is fucking funny shit. Man.
That was a fun night, actually.
How long ago was that?
That was like several. That was
5 years ago, maybe?
Probably.
Yeah, okay.
4 or 5 years ago, something like that. Yeah, it's like the big vampire ball. Yeah, we stayed overnight at a Hilton or something.
Jen and Dimitri, we've been knowing them for fucking over 10 years. Dimitri is a local DJ, okay? I represented him and got him into fucking independent bar. His wife, Jen, is a lead singer of 13th Angel. She's got long black hair and bob. Good-looking girl. She's got 2 daughters. One daughter, they both look grown, too.
They are grown.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about? They all look the same age.
Yeah.
They show up to the club sometimes, and they all look to be like just a bunch of hot women hanging out. They're all mothers and daughters. It's ridiculous. Make you feel old as shit, doesn't it? But they all look the same age.
Yeah,
they all look about like the same age. They look like they'd be friends hanging out.
Yeah, because she has one daughter that's 21, 22, and then she has one that's 18 or 19 or something like that.
And the older daughter looks just like Ross. Her last name is Ross, too. Laura, yeah. Laura Ross. With no relation between me and her, but she got the same name as me. She looks just like Laura.
She does, yeah.
Yeah.
Lion X Warrior foursomes. I knew you and Jenny were freaky.
Shit happens, man. Fucking,
I mean, you know.
It's not like anything happened between us and them.
It was just going on in the same room.
Yeah, fucking we'll be me and fucking Dimitri high-fiving each other. You know, fucking shit. You never can't tell. You know, you never can tell what happens.
Especially with that much alcohol in the mix.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's all fucking...
Shit gets crazy.
It's like something out of a movie.
Shit gets crazy when people drink.
I don't know what kind of movie
and we drank a lot, though. But like I said,
yeah.
it was good because it's like everybody drank a lot, but nobody was like... Everybody was like in a really, really good mood, but they were like really, really fucked up.
Thank you very much,
Thank you, Bridget. Yeah. Not much, but thank you for all your show work. Oh, thank you very much. We appreciate all of you guys, and we appreciate anything. So.
Tyler's saying I'm savage. Thank you very much, bro.
In a good way.
Yeah.
All right, so do you want to like
go ahead start this
talking
bitch
about
start
this or
start this bitch off?
Although Zach says I'd like to try a 3-way at least once. Sorry, I had to address.
How many women are gonna be involved in that, Zach?
Well, why
He's
would
gonna
there
say
be
none.
women involved?
He's gonna say none. Yeah.
You don't want women involved. Women have cooties.
Zach's gonna say none. Yeah.
Women have cooties.
Try to bring Zach on over to the dark side. Let me go to the restroom. Go ahead, Jen. I'm gonna put some more. Want some more ice in this?
Yeah, I'm getting kind of melty.
Okay.
Getting kind of melty, and it's like not even hot in here. It's cold outside. I mean, it's not. Well, I guess it's kind of cold outside. What does it say? I got my little temperature right here. It's 44 degrees Fahrenheit outside right now, and it's mostly cloudy. So it's kind of cold out. It's not as cold as it was last night, but you know what I mean. I even had to put my like little badger slippers on earlier because my feet were cold. But you know, I'm not going to turn the heat on because fuck that. It has to be really cold for me to turn the heat on. All right, so let's talk about Timothy fucking McVeigh. Here's this asshole. So he was born in a place called Lockport, New York. Now, he just, from everything that I could determine, they said that his upbringing was just like completely normal and completely boring and just kind of like just your regular white bread, suburban kind of upbringing. Like nothing unusual in the slightest. So his parents divorced when he was 10, and he actually got brought up by his dad in Pendleton, New York. Now, he said, Timothy McVeigh later said, that he got bullied in school. I don't know what the extent of it was or like how true that was or anything like that. And basically he went into a thing, because I kind of feel like he was sort of like an introverted kid. He's pretty intelligent. I think they did an IQ test on him. It was like 126, something like that, which is not genius, but it's like, significantly above average. So, but, he seemed kind of quiet, and and he was kind of like skinny a little bit. I think they called him like Noodle. I heard that was like one of his nicknames. So, however much he got bullied, I don't know. But like, if he did, he said that he had like all these kind of like fantasies about retaliating against the bullies. And some people have said that maybe this is what kind of like planted the seed, because later on he would go on to say like when he was an adult that it's like, oh, he grew to think of like the U.S. government or the federal government as like the ultimate bully kind of situation. So, I don't know if that's true, but like I said. So as I mentioned, as a kid, they said that he was generally like pretty shy, pretty quiet, a little bit withdrawn, but not unusual. Like there was nothing weird about him. Like nobody thought he was creepy or anything like that. Apparently he only had one girlfriend, like as a teenager, and in one of his interviews, he just said that he just wasn't good with women, or he didn't have any idea how to relate to them or how to impress them or anything like that. So, he had a little bit of maybe an incel kind of vibe going on as well. So basically, when he gets into high school though, and you have to think that this is like pretty early, this is early days of like computers, you know what I mean? So he actually got into kind of like computer hacking, just like in War Games, if you guys saw that movie from the early 1980s. So he has a Commodore 64, and he was able to like hack into like government computer systems, like I said, just like War Games. And he didn't start a nuclear war or anything, obviously, but he was able to kind of like hack in there. And he had his handle was The Wanderer, which was taken from that, that song. So, but yeah, so he was kind of like, I guess he was kind of like a computer nerd, like an early iteration of that. Also, they said that in high school, he was voted most talkative by his classmates as a joke because he didn't talk. So they thought that would be like really funny if they voted him that. You know what I mean? So his granddad actually kind of like started buying him guns and like taking him out hunting and stuff like that, which, I was watching a documentary earlier, and they were talking to like some other people that knew him and like lived in the neighborhood. And for the area that he grew up, it was kind of like, it wasn't rural, but it was kind of like a small town. Not unusual. Hunting season was like a big deal, and it's like, fathers, sons, grandfathers, they would all go out hunting together and shit like that. So it wasn't like unusual for kids as soon as they were old enough to, know how to use guns and go out in the woods hunting and stuff like that. So nobody thought anything was unusual because everyone else was doing the same thing.
My dad had me shooting the place up at about 8. Remington nylon fucking 66. Little white diamond on it. Yeah, I was good with that thing. Just shooting little fucking pieces of wood and cans and shit. It was fun. I loved it. Grew up with it. Second nature.
Well, yeah, and it seemed like, there's a lot of communities particularly in this one. This is Pendleton, New York. Is that upstate? I'm assuming that's upstate New York. And they said that it was very, very common for like kids that it's not weird.
That like probably freak people out in Europe. I'm sitting there fucking throwing those little 22 rounds down the fucking buttstock of that Remington 66 and putting the thing and fucking. We consider them to be like a 22. We consider that to be like a BB gun. You bought them at Sears for like $40. Nothing to them. right next to the BB gun. We didn't really see any difference between the BB gun and a 22. They were just fun, you know.
Camp Guy said, didn't they execute the other guy as well, Terry Nichols? No, he just got life in prison. But they did execute Tim McVeigh, though. Spoiler alert, in 2001. Lion X says, Jenny, it's not cold in Florida. You're blessed, trust me. Actually, I'm not complaining. I really like cold weather. Like, well, you know, it's cold for Florida. 44 is cold for Florida, but I like it. And it was actually cold on Christmas, which it hardly ever is. So
Got down in the 20s.
I was very, very excited. Because I was like, ooh, it feels like real winter. It was, like, amazing. Zach said, I never got making fun of people who are skinny. These days, it seems like that's all people want to be. Yeah, isn't it weird? Because, like, my brother, well, I have two brothers, but the one that's 4 years younger than me, like, when he was a little kid, he was, like, super, super skinny. And so, like, yeah, like, my family members and stuff used to, like, make fun of him. And it's like, oh, you better watch it when you take a shower. You're going to slip down the drain. Because he was, like, so skinny and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just think that's, like, really, really odd. Now I just kind of feel like more... You'd think that, like, people would be jealous because everyone else is, like, getting so fat. You know what I mean? Ben said they used to make fun of people for being smart. Yeah, I got made fun of for being smart. A lot. And that's it. It might still be going on. I don't know. But when I was in school, yeah, they used to make fun of you for being smart for sure. Let me see. Tyler the guy said, I'm so uncultured that instead of war games, my immediate thought was Hackers from 1995. That was a terrible fucking movie too. War Games is good though. I mean, it's very 80s.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah. I saw it was for free on some streaming service the other day, and I was like, oh, I kind of wanted to watch it again. I've seen it like a million times. Ben's like, nerd. Yeah. So yeah. The kid, Timothy McVeigh, he got kind of shitty grades. He graduated in 1986. So, ooh, that's crazy. He's only 4 years older than me then. Yeah, because I graduated in 1990.
They were my age, I think.
Yeah, he's the same age as you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so after he graduated from high school, like I said, he'd always kind of been into guns because of his granddad and, like, hunting and stuff like that. But he got, like, really way more into it. Like, he was always, like, reading magazines about it, and he got kind of, like, a little bit obsessed, I'm going to say. It was, like, a little bit of an obsession. Now, he did actually go to college for a little while, but then he dropped out. And then he went to work as, like, he was, like, guarded an armored car, like, that kind of thing. And even his coworkers were like, yeah, he's a little gun crazy. You know what I mean? And even among, like, the guards of, like, armored cars and stuff, it's like, it's a little much. You know what I mean? So even they were saying it was a little much.
I'm going to come to his defense.
Well, no, they said he came to work one day and he had fucking bandoliers on.
That's
like,
funny,
with fucking, which I was just like, yeah, that's a little... Why would you go to work like that?
I don't know. He thought... Well, he was an armored car driver, wasn't he?
Right, but, like, that's not part of the...
He was trying to upgrade.
But that's not started, like, part of the standard uniform.
Yeah, he was trying to upgrade. All right, look, here's the deal. I remember those days. If you were into firearms, you could get really fucking interested in them in those days because they were so mysterious. They had all these publications and all these magazines that you could get just at your local stores. And they were using a lingo and a terminology you really wouldn't be all that familiar with if you didn't have a proper education in them. It was like joining a scene. So it took a while to understand what it was they were talking about. Like, what does blowback action mean? You know, what is delayed blowback? What is fucking gas operation? What's piston operation? So you don't know what it is they're fucking talking about. And this is pre-internet. So it would take years of reading these fucking articles about these different kinds of firearms or whatever it is they're talking about before you were able to put it together what the fuck they were talking about. Had it been the age of the internet, I could have just Googled what this terminology and figured it out in a couple weeks, probably. You know? The rate of learning today is much faster than it was.
Well, shit, man, if you can just sit here and say, it's like, oh, I'd like to learn how to do this, and, like, literally in a minute, you can, like, find out how to do that.
Right. So, back in the days that McVeigh is talking about, I was kind of like that. I was like real curious about what this terminology, what are they what is kinetic energy? How do you compute kinetic energy? What is fucking ballistic gelatin? What is fucking, so all the terminology, it took longer to learn back then. Looking back on it, I don't know how we fucking did it, but everything was more mysterious. It was an age of mystery. Today,
you had to spend a lot longer,
right,
learning stuff.
And because it took longer and it was harder, you were kind of like joining an elite group now. Only a few dudes knew what you were talking about. So that's probably what he was going through.
Probably, although, like I said, it's a little weird. Like,
there were a lot of dudes like that
showing up to work. Well, see, and that's what I'm saying. It's just that, in hindsight, it's really easy to be like, you pick up. Well, it's just like when we talk about serial killers, and they're just like, yeah, he did this, that, and the other thing when he was a kid, which. Sometimes if you didn't know that person became a serial killer, it wouldn't necessarily seem all that weird. Well, like I said, him being like real into guns and stuff like that wasn't that unusual for the area. Nobody thought anything about it, really. Like when he started work, like at the armored car place, and they said, okay, him showing up with the bandoliers, that's weird.
Yeah, that was okay.
But like other than that, like I don't think anybody really, and they thought he was like kind of quiet, but nobody said, oh my God, that's a serial killer like in training or anything.
I remember this though. Going to a firearms range in the 80s and in the early 90s, pre-internet, you'd show up there and all the older guys were into sporting rifles and sporting pistols with a lot of wood on them, a lot of Italian shotguns, and they're fucking shooting trap and shit. And if you showed up with a Norinco AK or something that had a military heritage, they looked at you like, "Well, why do you have that?" And I go, "Because look at it, man, it's fucking cool, Look at this thing, a lot more fun." So they didn't have shooting sports that were militarized. They do now. The shit that what they're talking about, he's showing up with bandoliers, that would have been satiated, okay, had they had military action shooting events back in those days.
Yeah.
Because they have it now.
Because you would have had more outlets.
You have more outlets. Right. Now you got guys who they'll fucking wear military uniforms that match the rifle that they have and all the carrying equipment. They'll run through a speed course with pop-up targets, and they're all being timed. So they have all these new events. They're action shooting events. And people go, well, no, that's dangerous. That's crazy. Well, they had, forever here in the United States, they had the same thing of cowboy action shooting events where you're running through a damn course with fucking Colt 6 shooters and lever action fucking carbines and double-barreled shotguns going through an old West town, Also cool, and you're on a timer, all right? Or you're just quick draw events. Well, they have that now with modern firearms, like military shit. So had they had that back in McVeigh's time, he'd have been into that. And it probably wouldn't have been it doesn't have the mystique or the mystery today as it did back then. Because now it's
as we talked, I think in some ways there is some equivalent.
Yeah. Because
we talked before about you don't see the same kinds of serial killers to the same extent that you used to see them like in the 60s and 70s, which was like the heyday. Yeah. And like I kind of feel like into the late 80s, and then it started declining. But like now that we have like the internet, people can like look at like fucked up porn, or you can like kind of get into groups with other people who have the same weird proclivities as you, so nobody feels as isolated. Nobody feels like if you have really, really strange thoughts or really strange fetishes or something like that, you can find like a whole community of people who are also into that, who you can talk to even if you don't meet them in person. So I kind of feel like in a lot of ways that's why I never like, people are like, oh, the internet, oh, it's so bad and everything like that. I don't think it is. I think there's bad things about it, obviously, just like anything else. But I think in the aggregate, it's probably been like a positive because
it's like a pressure release valve.
Because it's a pressure release valve. And I kind of feel like had Timothy, now I don't know this because it's like, you'll never know because he was one guy. But I kind of feel like maybe had he been born at a different time, somebody mentioned earlier, he could have he would just had a YouTube show or something like that, and he could have talked to other like-minded people, and he probably wouldn't have felt the need to do that. I mean, he might have still done it anyway because people still do that shit.
He would have been an online activist, is what he would have been.
Right.
He'd had a show, and had been complaining about it, and that's what he would have been. And same thing because if you look at the United States, the way it is now, it is awash with paramilitary equipment and weapons. The dudes that are doing these fucked up shootings, they're not from that paramilitary action scene where they're going to those fucking ranges and doing all the fucking clubs and shit. It's not them. The dudes that are doing these shootings is usually some pussy-ass kid who takes that fucking thing or buys something, or they take it from their dad, or they fucking buy something, and they don't really know anything about it, and they go out and fucking shoot up some bullshit. Okay? They're not from that action shooting scene. But the existence of that action shooting scene is probably releasing a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Because people are finding a community. You can go there, you can hang out, you can do shit you like to do, you can hang out with people that have the same...
Had you taken that nutcase who did that shoot in reverse time and put him in one of them clubs, he probably have been all right.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you don't know. He might have still done it anyway,
but a lot of times those dudes are isolated and they're in a bad situation, and it's a form of suicide. They're killing themselves and taking everybody with them is what they're doing,
Another thing, too, was I kind of feel like Timothy McVeigh, and one of his things was he kind of just, and I guess this happens nowadays, too, but he just kind of goes further and further down a rabbit hole. And because he was kind of introverted, he only really interacted with people who believed the same things as him. Yeah. So
he was in an echo chamber.
So he kind of just got like more and more radicalized. Yeah. Like as time went on. Well, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen nowadays. It does, but I kind of feel like it's much easier to access like other viewpoints and stuff.
It happens today, and it happens kind of with everybody. It's just the thing is that this was a particular dude with a particular skill set and mindset, in a particular bubble, at a particular time. It was a one-off. This really hadn't happened again.
I mean, yeah. Well, the thing about it, this is still, to this day...
Still one of the big ones.
Well, it's the worst domestic terrorist attack. Yeah. Because you see, like, obviously 9/11, but that was, a foreign, that was, international terrorism. This is still the worst domestic terrorist attack. And this happened in 1995. Yeah. 168 people dead.
Yeah. We call it terrorism. He wouldn't have considered it terrorism. Everything is a point of view. He would have saw it as rebellion. But
I know.
They're all like that.
But see, that's the thing about it, is that sometimes like murderers and stuff like that, they don't call it like what it is.
Right, yeah. Just like Obi-Wan said, fucking many of the truths that we cling to depend upon a certain point of view. And, it's been often said that one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. It is true. A lot of the Islamic terror, if you look at it from their viewpoint, with their scriptures and their cultural value system, they think they're doing a good thing.
Well, the thing about it, and, most people know this, but I kind of feel like everybody that, you look back in history and it's like, oh, that was an evil motherfucker. 99% of those people thought they were doing the right thing. Yep. That's kind of what makes them fascinating in a lot of ways. But it's also what makes them terrifying, is because you can really, if you get in a certain headspace, you can kind of justify anything.
Yeah. Just look at Mustache Man and the Germans.
That's what I'm saying.
They were convinced that God was on their side.
They didn't think they were evil. No. That didn't occur to them.
No, they're stamping out evil in their mind.
Right. That's what I mean. That's what I find fascinating about this kind of stuff, is like that kind of like point of view where you can pretty much do like the most monstrous things imaginable that, the vast majority of people on Earth would think was monstrous, but you can justify, and you're like, what? I'm just, I'm doing like a good thing over here. It's just kind of, whatever. All right. So where was I? Okay. So in 1988, when Timothy McVeigh was 20 years old, He was kind of, like I said, he had some jobs here and there, but he seemed like he was kind of like rootless, a little bit shiftless, you know what I mean? So he enlisted in the Army. So he goes to basic training, and that was at Fort Benning. Now, when he was in the Army, you know, obviously he still, you know, was real interested in guns and firearms, you know, and like sniper tactics, stuff like that. And he started getting interested in bombs as well. Now, he did actually get in trouble when he was in the Army a couple times for buying some like white power merchandise. So you know what I mean. So there was that. Now, Terry Nichols, who was the guy that was convicted as his co-conspirator later on in the bombing, was actually his platoon guide, platoon leader, something like that. But he was like, so they kind of like befriended one another because they had like similar viewpoints and similar like backgrounds and things like that. So they later got transferred to, they were at Fort Riley, that's in Kansas. So they were there together. And that was where the two of them met the third accomplice, whose name was Michael, was it Fortier or Fortier? Now I can't remember, because I've heard it pronounced like in the documentary, but I can't remember how they pronounced it. So Timothy McVeigh was actually like a decent, you know, Army. He was a decent soldier, you know what I mean? He was a gunner. And he actually got promoted to sergeant. Now, after he got promoted, one of the things that kind of went around about him was that he used the N-word a lot, and he would usually give the black soldiers shittier duties, you know. So he kind of got a reputation for being a little bit racist. So got that going for him, you know what I mean? So, yeah. So then he went to Operation Desert Storm. So, you know, he got sent out for that. Now, he says in an interview that they did later on, like after he got caught for the Oklahoma City bombing, that he said on the first day that he was in the Gulf War, that he had hit an Iraqi tank from 500 yards away. And also another story that he likes to tell, and I'm guessing this is true, but that like with his cannon, he actually like shot off a dude's head, like one of like an Iraqi like popped up like that, and he like shot his head off, like it went off like in a red mist or something. And apparently that was like kind of a formative moment, I guess it seemed like, because he brought it up more than once. So he actually, over the course of the war, got several service awards. He got the Bronze Star Medal, like National Defense Service Medal, Southwest Asia Service Medal, Army Service Ribbon, and the Kuwaiti Liberation Medal. So he got a bunch of stuff there. Now, he actually wanted to join Special Forces. So after he got back from his tour of the Gulf War, he actually went into the selection program for Special Forces. But on the second day of the 3-week thing, he dropped out. Yeah. Now, he told the other guys that it was because, I hurt myself, like I hurt my ankle. But they had the letter to his superiors where he said that he was not, quote-unquote, physically ready.
Yeah.
So
that could be the same thing.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if that's what it meant or not. So he actually decided after that...
thing is, the selection isn't 3 weeks. This must have been a pre-selection.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's just that I'm just reading from my notes, and it just said a selection program for Army Special Forces. And it was a 21-day assessment is what it was, and selection course. So I guess they were seeing, like, who had could go on to, like, the main thing, maybe.
Yeah, because the Q course, which is what we would consider selection, that goes on, I think that's several months. You know, from what I remember. Okay. So I don't think it was selection. I think it might have been a pre-selection.
Well, like I said, it says assessment.
Okay, assessment. Yeah, okay.
I just said that. Assessment.
All right, yeah.
So I'm just saying that it's probably like the
pre-code.
It's 3 weeks. Yeah. So he was in there for 2 days.
It's kind of like pre-RIP. You had Ranger School, but you had to go through fucking pre-Ranger, which is if you can make it through this fucking little 2-week course, you got a good chance of making it through Ranger School. Which in the
E4
time I was
Mafia
in-
said elite units are elite for a reason. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Very, very few people.
Their whole job is
make
to
it.
eliminate you, and I did not make it through Ranger School. Okay, I didn't make it to Ranger School. Fucking
Well, you said it was the swimming one, or
swimming,
the
swim
water
swim test.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
I had to go down and go get a fucking rucksack off the bottom of the fucking pool. I think it was 12-foot pool, and swim back up when you're in full equipment with helmet and rifle. And on the way up, I fucking dropped that thing. And so I went then there to swim back down to go get it, and they pulled me up. I was on a line, and there says, and I said, "Dude, you pulled me up. I could have got it. You're on a time limit." And it says, "Oh no, you were running out of time. You never would have.
You wouldn't have made it.
You wouldn't have made it anyway." And there was like 3 things that you could if you failed 3 things, that was it. And I don't remember what the other 2 things were, but I was pissed off over that swim test. Oh, wait a minute, I might be getting it confused with AIB, Expert Infantry Badge. It was just, I don't think you could fail anything out of fucking pre-ranger. You had to be able to make everything, if I remember. So it was swim test, yeah. It's hard. You're in boots with a helmet.
Yeah.
You know, all that drag on you. And then the fucking rucksack fills up with fucking water. It's on a line, but they're not going to pull up the line. You have to fucking swing. You have to swim up with it. And the fucking you have to have a rifle slung across your back. M16, A2.
I imagine that knocks out a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people get knocked out by shit like that. Swim test.
I could see that. Because that's like really, really difficult. Even for people that are like in really good shape.
Yeah, in those days it was knocking a lot of black guys out. They're weak swimmers. They don't grow up in an environment where swimming from little kids. And we were always trying to figure it out. Black dudes in the infantry tended to sink. And I think it was because they got a high bone density and they were lean. They tended to be very lean. So there was no flotation on them.
Yeah,
so
fat floats.
Yeah, right. And,
is...
you know, a black guy who's made it through the infantry, he's usually lean, at least in the time I was in. So they're not real good at floating. So it requires more effort, and they're in boots with a helmet. So they had a slight handicap. I think it's just because of leanness and bone density.
Probably, yeah. It probably has something to do with it.
Race matters when it comes to the wild and physical shit. You know, white people can fucking tolerate cold a lot more than non-whites. We die later. You'll start to see black guys start suffering from fucking
yeah, I mean, like everything else, it's a spectrum, but there is...
You start seeing them first. They're like the canaries in the coal mine. We're going, it's getting cold. Those guys are going down. If they go down, we're only 20 minutes behind them. The difference is only minutes. You know?
Yeah.
But the black guys go down first from cold weather injury. Yeah, this way it is. Biology, bitch. You can't run from it.
But like you said, it's not a huge, huge difference.
Mm-mm. It was enough to make a difference a long time ago before everybody had modern clothing.
Yeah.
But still, you put dudes in fucking 20 degrees below zero, the clothing aren't as fucking critical as you think they are. It's hard to fucking survive that amount of wind chill, you know?
Man, I was watching a fucking one of those shows the other day that like I survived whatever.
Yeah.
Like an old one. And remember that guy, like that guy survived like in a car.
Yeah.
For like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In like sub-zero temperatures. And all he had was like a sleeping bag and like some fucking rice cakes.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that guy's got some will to live.
Well, he survived because of that sleeping bag. He never would have made it without it.
Well, no, he would have frozen to death.
Yeah.
Well, because, he wasn't planning on, like, getting stuck out there in the fucking middle of he was just driving somewhere and the car broke down, you know what I mean? And then, like, there was a blizzard and he got buried. But, yeah, he was out there for 2 fucking weeks. Eating, like, fucking, all he had was rice cakes and banana chips.
Yeah.
And a sleeping bag. And just, like, regular-ass clothes. Like, he didn't have a coat or nothing, I don't think. Or nothing, like, you know. So, you know. I mean, it can be done, but...
Yeah.
I kind of feel like most of the time it's not going to happen. But yeah, so he got honorably discharged. Like, he decided to leave the army after he...
You're calling me an anthropologist now. Yeah, I'm an anthropologist now, yeah.
Linex Warrior said it's nothing to do with high bone density. American blacks are usually urban. In the Caribbean and Africa, black dudes be swimming all the time.
Yeah,
I think it's more like a cultural, like how they grow up more than anything.
But the black guys that were going through pre-ranger and ranger school were from the South and could swim. It's just that they didn't quite swim as well as us, and it seemed to be to do that particular test because they were leaner. They had to put out more energy to get it up off the fucking bottom of the fucking pool and swim up the top with it. And we noticed that guys that had a little bit more fat on them floated better. So that particular task was easier.
Fat does
was easier to do. Because the guys that were getting knocked out, the black guys that were getting knocked out were all lean. Lean, fucking high muscle density, good bone density on them. Great runner bodies. You know what I mean? They're like good runner type guys. Which fucking, a ranger got to run too. Infantry got to run. It's a good skill. But they were lean, so at that particular test, it was harder for them.
Camp Guy says, women have an actual extra layer of fat over their bodies that men do not have. Actual anatomical difference in the sexes. And he said, where did it go? Makes women stronger than men in some survival situations. I taught lifeguard training. I think it is generally easier for like women to float because they just generally have more fat content. You know, that's just biology. It doesn't.
So there you go. You got a lifeguard degree in women. Yeah. Infantry, black dudes tended to be lean. Okay. Which that gave them a lot of advantages. But not on that damn swim test. Okay. It was better to be a little bit fat.
For that test.
For that particular
probably
test.
not for the running or for some other things. But see, that's the thing. It's like nobody is good at everything. Everybody's going to have some. So that's kind of like where they get you. Yeah. So that's kind of why, you know, so many people get knocked out of it because it's very, very rare for somebody to be good at like all those things.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like equally. Oh, man. Jones Perkins says, you guys are so entertaining. I can't figure out why you're not more popular.
They got us fucking shadow banned, man.
I don't think we're shadow banned.
We would take over YouTube.
We're almost at 13. We're almost at 13,000. I'm excited.
Shit, man. They got fucking channels that'll make fucking 20,000
new
subscribers a week. Get up to like 1.5 million.
I know that.
And then they have to say, we got to shut them off. They're 2 million. They'll do that too to people, but I don't know why. Just it's how it is. Like, share, subscribe.
We're an acquired taste, I guess.
Like, share, subscribe. This is a good talk show. We're about halfway through this.
Well,
okay. Look, okay. Once you get to this, don't forget we got commercials we got to play.
Well, I know that, but it's like we're not even halfway through yet. Just calm down. I mean, some of the stuff I'm gonna skip. It's like I have more notes. I always have more notes than like I actually use. Because some of the stuff, like, I kind of, like, read the stuff through earlier and, like, watch documentaries. But then, like, when I'm reading it, I'm like, that's kind of boring. I'm going to skip that. But whatever. Zach says, ironically, the most toxic community I've been in outside of some anime fandoms, like, online, is the screenwriting subreddit. Yeah. I believe it. Yeah, you'd think that it's, like, shit that is about stuff that's, like, not even that important, like, in the grand scheme of things. Like, people get really, really, They get really into it, and I don't understand. I don't understand like why people get so upset about stuff that doesn't really matter. Like in the grand scheme of things, I don't know. I don't get it.
Got Sly down there. Sly, he's a black veteran from the Army, and he's giving his statistics. He's 5'8". He weighs 170 pounds. He weighed that for 25 years until he reached 50, and now he weighs 185. He's 5'8". So I'm still 10 pounds heavier than you. We got to look at the damn. We got to look at the what do you call it? The body composition, how much muscle, how much fat. That's a factor. But Sly, you were there. You remember those fucking infantry dudes going through fucking pre-ranger schools, especially the black guys, tended to be the better runners. And they also tended to be lean. They had more problem with the swim test. The white dudes are like kind of, I don't know, they're almost like Eskimos. Some of them had a little bit more fat on them, but they could still complete those runs and the courses. They just floated better. And the black dudes that were going through the ranger programs when I was in, they were all country dudes. They were from the South, so they grew up swimming. You know, they weren't They weren't urban like the other guy said. They were southern. Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, out in the middle of nowhere. Same profile, same culture as the white guys.
Ben says we're doing commercials now. Sponsorship shekels. No, we're not. We're not sponsored by anybody.
They're our own commercials.
They're commercials for like my stuff that I make, like books and games and stuff. Camp Guy said women's extra layer of body fat is probably related to the evolution of childbearing needs. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Because honestly, you know, from a childbearing point of view, obviously it's more important for the woman to live longer, so she needs more fat stores. She needs more stuff so like she can feed babies and stuff like that. So that's why. Yeah. Ben says very crazy people get obsessed with movie characters and actors all the time. That's probably what it is. It's just very silly to me that, you know, I know why it happens, but it is very silly to me that like so many people get so emotionally invested in movie characters, like stuff that isn't real. Like I love that shit too. Like I geek out about horror movies, I geek out about all that stuff, but like I'm not gonna be one of those people that's like, you know, if a movie comes out in a franchise that I loved and it's like and I don't like it, I'm not gonna get like, oh my god, it's the worst thing ever. It's like I'm not gonna get like that because it's like, geez, calm down. There's more important things to worry about. I got bigger problems. You know what I mean? I got way bigger problems than like that kind of crap. But yeah. But, you know, I can see how people that maybe don't have other problems or maybe, like, dissociating their actual problems onto, like, fictional problems, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, so I don't really know. So yeah. So McVeigh gets out of the Army in 1991. He was honorably discharged because, like I said, he didn't make it through to Special Forces. So at this point, he started writing letters to the newspapers, you know, complaining about stuff. This was in 1992, and they still have like a lot of his stuff, obviously, because it was all published. So, you know, complaining about your kind of standard sort of stuff that people would be complaining about taxes, talking about imminent civil war. So talking about that back in 1992. Now, one thing that he did write complaining about, he actually wrote to one of his representatives at the time, whose name was John LaFalce. And he actually wrote him a letter complaining about a woman who, I don't know if she got arrested or she got in trouble or something like that for like carrying mace in her purse, which, you know, I don't like to be agreeing with Timothy McVeigh on anything, but it's like, yeah, I'm kind of with him on that. Like, I don't really like think that you should get in trouble for like carrying mace in your purse, for Christ's sake. I mean, it's not like it's going to kill anybody, you know, and it's like a good, like kind of self-defense thing. So yeah. So he kind of goes through this where he's like writing letters to newspapers all the time. Now, later, like I said, he's kind of like a little bit of a drifter. It felt like he didn't really have, you know, he didn't really have any ambition in life or anything like that. So he's just kind of like wandering from place to place. And he moved in with Terry Nichols. And they lived on, Terry Nichols had a brother named James. And he had a farm in Michigan. So he moved in there. So they were all kind of like living there together. Now, apparently around this time period, Timothy McVeigh started complaining that the Army had put a microchip in his butt that was tracking him. Like the Army had put it in there. So...
Wait, hold on. Wait, I was stepped away. He thought he got injected by a microchip?
That there was a microchip in his butt.
Who said
like,
this?
Timothy McVeigh did.
I didn't realize he said that.
Yeah. That like... that.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well... Obviously. You're only
I
just not really...
I don't think they had that technology then. They have that kind of technology now.
That kind of sound... Yeah, but that... I mean, that was the kind of shit that people were saying, like, back in the early 90s. Like, oh my god, they planted, like, a microchip. It's like, you know, that's kind of like shit that... Not to be... me. That's like shit that schizophrenics say. Like, that think that people are, like, implanting stuff and, like, tracking you. It's like, bitch, nobody cares what you're doing. Just trust me. Nobody cares. But yeah, he thought that somebody had implanted a microchip in his butt so they could track him. So yeah, so he had a job, but it wasn't like a great one. You know what I mean? And he's just kind of living with his friends and their family or whatever. And I guess he kind of developed a crush on, are you drinking my drink now?
No, put
oh, okay. I thought you were just like not looking at it. You were just like taking it. And I was like, what are you doing? So, and I guess he kind of like developed a crush on a coworker, but, you know, and maybe like asked her out and she was like, nah, rather not. And then he got like real, kind of upset about that. And so he wasn't real, like I said, he had a little bit of an incel vibe going on too. Like he wasn't real slick with women. So there's that too. So that probably wasn't helping because I kind of feel like he felt like he was like I said, just adrift in life. He didn't really have any ambition, like bigger ambitions. He couldn't really find a girlfriend and he was frustrated about that. You know, so, and he was mad about taxes and about the thing in his butt and all this other kind of stuff. So, he starts getting like a gambling problem too. And then he spent so much money gambling that he went into like horrible debt and then got a loan to try to pay back the debt, but then he couldn't pay back the loan. You know what I mean? So there was that. And then adding salt, like throwing salt on the wound, I guess he got a letter, evidently, that that he had been overpaid by the army, like while he was in the army by like
So
$1,000 or something,
Yeah.
and like they wanted it back.
Oh,
and
shit.
he got like really, really mad about that. Like he wrote them a letter and everything. Part of the letter said, "Go ahead, take everything I own, take my dignity, feel good as you grow fat and rich at my expense, sucking my tax dollars and property." Which, like I said, I feel that. Okay, I feel the frustration, but it's just kind of like, I don't know, man. I guess you're going to get fucked over. That's just what life is like. You know what I mean? No matter where you are. So at this point, like, Timothy McVeigh is just very, very, you know, anti-federal government, anti-everything. He got his sister all into it. Like, his dad was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. He didn't want to hear it. But, like, he got his sister kind of into it, too. So his dad was kind of like, yeah, you might want to, like, move out. And so he moved out into like some kind of like shitty little apartment. Now the apartment apparently didn't have a telephone because I'm assuming he couldn't afford one. So he had a job, but like his, you know, his manager or whatever would like try to call him like, hey, can you come in or something like that? And he didn't have a phone. So there's that. Now he was a member at the NRA at this time, but he quit around this time period because he thought that they were too weak on gun rights. So there was that. So, 1993, the Waco siege takes place. And McVeigh was so incensed by this that he actually drove there, like, while it was going on, because it went on for quite a long time. And he went there to kind of, like, join the protest or, like, show his support, you know, for the Branch Davidians. And while he was there, and there's like film of him there too, like sitting on the front of like the hood of his car or whatever. And so he starts like passing out literature and bumper stickers and stuff like that at the Waco thing. So after the Waco siege took place, he started going around, like I said, he would go around the country to like gun shows and stuff like that. And he started handing out cards with the name and address of Lon Horiuchi, who was the guy at Ruby Ridge who had shot the woman and the baby.
He's trying to dox him.
So he did.
He's doxing him, yeah.
He did. And he's basically like, he didn't come out. I mean, I was going to say he didn't come out and say it, but he did come out and say, he would put on the card, it said, in the hope that somebody in the Patriot movement would assassinate the sharpshooter. So he was like handing those out at gun shows and stuff like that. So he was an FBI sniper, that guy, like John Horiuchi.
Yeah, who pulled the trigger when he shouldn't have.
Right.
But the way fucking McVeigh's handling this,
that's what I mean. I'm not saying that like what he did was what Horiuchi did was good. Obviously it wasn't. But I'm just saying that it's like that's not cool either. That doesn't make it better.
Yeah, two wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly. That's a lesson that should have been imparted like like much earlier than this. It's just,
could have used that dude as a tool to dismantle the ATF if you're pissed at the ATF. You just the fucking brutal way of, hey, knock this motherfucker off. Nah, that'll never work out.
And the thing about it is,
That'll
like,
come back on
even
you.
if you had done that,
Right.
like, you know, just obviously that's morally repugnant, like I said, but it's like, what would that accomplish?
Wouldn't accomplish anything.
I don't think it would accomplish anything.
No, they'd hire 4 more shooters like that. And put them
Even
on the
from
payroll.
a pragmatic standpoint, it's not.
You're fighting.
wise.
You're fighting an institution, and that's not how you. That's not how you fight institutions. You fight institutions with lawyers and public sentiment. That's how you do it.
Yeah, so there was that. Now, the thing about it was that when Timothy McVeigh was first thinking about his plan, like to get back at the U.S. government for Waco and Ruby Ridge, which was kind of his main thing, like you said, he was initially going to do a campaign of assassination, and Horiuchi was actually high up on his list of like people that he wanted to assassinate. So he actually was going to do that, like before the whole bombing situation. So he becomes kind of like a little bit well known, like on the gun show circuit. Like I said, he'd go around the country, and he would like kind of he went like almost all over the U.S. honestly, like to different gun shows, and he would start. He sold stuff, like he would sell like someone mentioned earlier, he would sell copies of the Turner Diaries, which, you know, if you don't know, that came out in 1978 and was written by a neo-Nazi, like under a pseudonym. And it's basically like, it's a fictional novel, but like I said, it's kind of like a polemic in the sense that it's
kind of like a training manual.
Well, yeah, it's basically like it's a white supremacist Bible is what it is, because they're like, we basically want to kill all blacks, Jews, liberals, that kind of stuff. Like, that's what the story is about. And the opening scene of the book is somebody blowing up a federal building with a truck bomb. So they think that that's probably where he got the idea to do that. It's like, ooh, that sounds like a good idea. You know what I mean? From the Turner Diaries.
I haven't
because
read it,
he
so.
loved that fucking book. And he even had like notes from it, like in the, I think even when they pulled him over, like when they caught him, like for the bombing, like he had like copied pages of it, like in his car, like in a folder and stuff like that. He was really, really into that book.
I've never read it, so I really can't comment on it. It was my understanding that the importance of the book really didn't have anything to do with the topics of fucking like white supremacy or anything. What it was more like a training manual on how to start an uprising or a rebellion, and the tactics that were used.
Oh, it's absolutely about white supremacy.
Yeah, but that's not why they were reading it. Based on fucking what I remember. Like I said, I never read it. It was mostly talking about what the tactics to use to start an uprising and to bring down a government. That's why they were reading it. It really didn't have anything to do with anything else. It was just like more like a training manual.
Well, I mean,
just
yeah,
that the characters were that way.
You can say that, but like a couple of white supremacist groups used it as justification for some other similar like terror attack.
Now, evidently, like I said, this is like a really poorly written book, and what they're talking.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Yes, it's not really. I've heard people that read it. The synopsis is this: it's not really a good read, and it's poorly written. It was more of a way of demonstrating certain tactics that you could use against law enforcement and a federal government to how to attack things like power distribution centers. You know, places attacking the infrastructure of a state or a government to get it to collapse and to get the population to rise up in a revolt, and that they would kill each other too during the rebellion. That's part of it. So that's the reason why. I mean, that was what I was told. The reason why they were reading it mostly, more like a training manual than anything else. Didn't have a lot to do with ideology, because they already had that ideology.
Yeah.
They didn't need to spread that ideology. They already had it. It was the training factor in the story, evidently, why they were reading it. It was, which I guess McVeigh did that. But the thing is that those tactics tend not to work. So I don't know why they're worried about it. It's pretty old-fashioned. They just don't work. You start attacking a government openly like that, they retaliate. Okay? And it doesn't really... They tend to button up and become even more hardcore if you really want to fucking destroy a government, best thing to do is just ridicule it and expose the crimes that it's doing, and then get like-minded people to go to work for that government. And once they get inside there, you start usurping it, and then you basically want a situation like what you saw with the Soviet Union, where one day it's there, 3 days later, it no longer exists. Everybody just walked away from it because its money wasn't worth anything. Nobody wanted to work for it. Nobody believed in it. That's how you really do it. If you fucking start attacking a government with kinetic force, in other words, fighting it, you now justify that government's existence. So it's counter. It's, you know what I mean? It counters what the goal is. You want that government to become overbearing. You want it to become stupid. And you want it to become tyrannical. That way it will lose public support. So in some ways, maybe attacking it, you might be able to get it to crack down that way. So it becomes, you're trying to make the government become a totalitarian society, because nobody will like that. You can get rid of it that way, but that's kind of an inefficient way of doing it. What you want what happened in the Soviet Union. Just undermine. 20 years of that, and a bunch of perestroika strikes, and labor strikes, and tax strikes, and the next thing you know, people just walk away from it.
All right, so I'm gonna run some commercials because I have to go to the bathroom.
Run 'em.
So I'm gonna do commercial string 2 first.
Okay.
If I'm not back,
I'll go back to 1.
Then go.
And now is acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night, and one by one dropped the revelers in the blood-bedewed holes of their road, and died each in the despairing posture of his fall. And the life of the ebony clock went out with that of the last of the gang, and the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion.
All right, we're back. We both gone to the restroom. What's the matter?
I was looking for my glasses. Where'd they go?
How would I know?
I must have set them down out there.
Where are my glasses? He never knows where his glasses are. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so it got to a point where Timothy McVeigh was one of those guys that it's like he had a map that had all of the what he thought were the most likely targets for nuclear attacks like on the map, and he's like, I'm gonna buy some property like away from that, like in a kind of, you know, in a zone where they're not gonna like bomb. So he moves in with the third guy, Michael Fortier. They move to Arizona. Now, the two of them actually like lived together for a time. Now, Fortier was real into meth. Let's say that.
Who was into meth?
Michael Fortier, the third. He was the third guy that they knew.
Yeah.
Kind of I don't know if I'd go so far as to say co-conspirator, but kind of. So yeah, they were smoking pot, but you know, I don't give a shit about that. But yeah, so they were both doing meth. Now, apparently, like, Timothy McVeigh did it too, but I guess he wasn't as into it as, like, the other dude was. Because I think one of the reasons that they stopped, like, you know, that he moved out was because Michael Fortier was, like, a meth head. You know what I mean? So basically, April of 1993, Timothy McVeigh goes back to the farm in Michigan where Terry Nichols lived after living in Arizona with the meth head. So, because of the Waco siege, this seemed like it was kind of like the final nail in the coffin, where Timothy McVeigh was like, well, I have to do something. And apparently Terry Nichols was kind of the same mind, because they start basically like making explosive, like pipe bombs and shit like that, in their houses, you know, making explosives in jugs and crap like that. So, and then, like, at the gun shows that he was still going to, he starts doing shit like, you know, selling ATF hats that had, like, bullet holes shot through them. You know, flare guns that he said could shoot down an ATF helicopter, shit like that.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, that must be some flare gun.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Yeah, flare gun that can shoot down a helicopter. I don't think he knows what a flare is. Motherfucker's lying.
That's some bullshit right there.
Flare just doesn't have the mass. It just bounced off a damn helicopter. Come on.
Yeah.
He's telling that to the rubes.
Well, yeah, he was just trying to sell some shit, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had all these kind of pamphlets and shit like that he was like giving out and selling and crap like that. So, also in the house, him and Terry Nichols are, like I said, making pipe bombs, experimenting with various explosives, and shit like that. So there was all of that kind of nonsense going on. So there was another thing that he was real into too, because remember how I said, like, after the Waco, while the Waco thing was going on, like, and there were protesters and stuff, and he actually went there. He kind of, like, for some reason felt the need to, like, go places, like, where he thought, I don't know what he thought he was going to do exactly, but he actually went, they know that he actually went to Area 51, because he thought there was, like, some shit going on there.
Aliens, man.
Yeah, I guess, or, like, anywhere that he thought that the government was covering something up, he's like, I'm going to go check this out for myself, kind of situation. Like I said, I don't know what he thought he was going to do when he got there, but...
You can't get in there.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, what did you think you were gonna do? You're just gonna sit there in your car and, like, no one's gonna be intimidated, bro.
No, they got
like,
fucking
I
private security. They won't let you into the fucking range. It's a range. That's all. It's a fucking aircraft range. You ain't getting in there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just that.
It's just McDonnell Douglas and fucking Lockheed Martin.
I don't know. I kind of feel these kind of guys. I kind of feel like there's a little bit of. I think they think that they're, like, more important or scary than they actually are in real life.
He thought something was being hidden from him.
Right, from him specifically.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like...
gonna expose it.
Yeah, and I'm just like, no, you're not.
I admire his balls, though. He said, I'm gonna figure this shit out. I'm gonna show y'all. They're lying. They got a UFO.
I saw Alien Autopsy.
Yeah, they got a UFO on there. We're gonna see it. I'm not laughing at UFOs or anything.
When did Alien?
Don't take me the wrong way.
When did Alien Autopsy come out?
That must have been around '96. maybe 95, 96. I remember when it came out. I rented it. I rented it from the local fucking.
You actually paid for that?
Yeah,
shit?
I wanted to see that shit. I was fucking amazed, man. I had to watch. Stop fucking laughing. I had to watch that thing 3 or 4 times, and really like, it was a different era. Okay, it was a very different time. I had to watch that fucking video 3 or 4 times, and to get over the initial emotions behind it, to where I could just rationally analyze what I was being seen, and I went, no, that's a reenactment. Can't be. That's a rubber dummy. But it took me a couple times. I had to.
They weren't even doing an autopsy, right?
No.
It's like, have you guys ever seen a fucking NCIS or anything like that? Come on, that's not how you do an autopsy.
That's pretty low tech, man, for fucking doing an autopsy on an alien body, and they're just pulling shit out of there. That's just random. You're just pulling out stuff.
They're not measuring it or like putting it. They weren't doing anything like that you would normally do if this is like an alien being.
Yeah. And they're just doing it in like a fake doctor's office that could have been anywhere. It looked like just an empty room with a clock. I remember that. And some tables. And I'm like, wait a minute. Even in the 40s, they would have been a group of dudes. Like 7 or 8 fucking doctors. And they would have been, this shit would have went slowly, what they're doing.
Well, yeah, like I said, this is an alien being.
Right.
They'd have been like super careful. There'd have been like all kind of people in there like looking at it.
It wouldn't have been a general fucking thing like meatball surgery where we just cut somebody open and throw some shit in a bag.
It's like, it's a human. We've seen this shit before.
It wouldn't have been one film. It would have been about 100 of them. Each one of them about 5. And it would have been slowly, meticulously detailing.
Yeah.
Skin texture.
Because the anatomy would have been entirely different. They would have been like cataloging every single thing.
Yeah, they would have had a whole fucking hour-long feature of making an incision along the abdomen and fucking, and there would have been all kinds of stuff. Because that's the way those dudes did shit back then. Yeah. They just didn't. They were a lot more advanced than you think they were in the 40s, 30s, 50s. Those motherfuckers wore pocket protectors. Okay, they wore pocket protectors. They had glasses.
They were serious.
They had slide rules. They thought about shit. They talked about it. They wrote it down on napkins while they were drinking. Fucking, they'd have titty girls out in the fucking bar, and they're talking about rocket technology. Okay, fucking, my granddad was one of them. All right, they took that shit very seriously. They thought about it because they didn't have computers. You couldn't rely on a computer, so everything was done by a plan, by a team. Motherfuckers wore ties. They had a tie on when they did this, okay? Short sleeve shirts, pocket protector, tie. And fucking Coke bottle glasses. Like nerdy as shit. That's who would have been there. There'd have been about 20 of them.
Nerds made the world, bitch.
Nerding the fuck out. Yeah, and everything would have been done real slowly.
If we left it up to y'all dumb motherfuckers, we'd still be like living in caves.
And that body, they wouldn't have had that body just sitting on a table, all right? It would be sitting in a fucking, like an aquarium filled with fucking ice. And you would have only seen where they were making that incision, because they would want to mess with that body for fucking months. So it would never be off of ice. I think it would be constantly kept real cold. They wouldn't want it to rot. They just had this shit sitting up on the table.
Because it was just made of rubber.
It was made of rubber, yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah.
They actually even figured out where they got it from. Later on, they were able to source where they got it from. Yeah.
I had to calm down though.
Sly said Tom rented Alien Autopsy. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, I rented Alien Autopsy.
That's what I said.
Get the fuck off the channel. Get the fuck off the channel. Ban that man. Dude, it was the times, man. Fucking, that shit came out the video store. I was living in Boston at that time, and I rented that shit. And the fucking people. Bostonians are fucking some snooty motherfuckers. I rent that shit, and they were fucking snickering, looking at each other.
I would have snickered too, not gonna lie.
He's getting that shit there. And I was like, fuck you bitches. I want to see the alien autopsy, man.
It's real aliens. Shut up.
Because I kept going in there getting alien shit. I lost all respect from these fucking people that worked at the damn video store. Yankees,
How'd that make you feel, Tom?
Made me feel bad. Fucking, it's Yankees. That's how they do shit, man. They're looking at me, rolling their eyes.
Like I said, I'm from the South, and I probably would have laughed at you, too.
Yeah, they're rolling their eyes and shit. I'm like, fuck you, bitch. I want to see the fucking alien program, man. I was watching X-Files and shit.
Well, there's nothing wrong with X-Files. That's fictional.
I was watching that too, man. Now, that's why that alien autopsy video appeared, because of X-Files. Because that was big.
Well, yeah, that was like, that was a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, and then they came out with that, and everybody fucking looked at it.
Rick Shaw said, I miss video stores.
Yeah,
I do too, a little bit. I mean, it's much better nowadays because I can just watch whatever the fuck I want, like whenever the fuck I want, which is like...
That's where you could meet a cute girl at the video store. You had cute ones working in there. You had cute ones going in there renting videos. You try to chase them. It was good back in the day, you know. You were in your 20s.
You chased him around the thing, like on the Benny Hill show?
Yeah, you're like, how you doing? What kind of movie you going to see? Because there was no internet, you know. And I was in my 20s back then. So, you know, you could do that back then.
I'd be like, I'm writing Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, yeah. Yeah. When you were like fucking 22, you were looking for one that was like 18 or 19, so you're younger than you know. Fucking, because, you know, you might be able to impress her. Because you wouldn't impress nobody at 24. You didn't have the fucking money. You know? But an 18 or a 19-year-old girl, she's just out of the house. Maybe she might, for all you know, she's a high school senior or something, you know. Yeah, let's hang out with these guys.
Yeah, she's still like dumb and naive.
Well, no, you're a big move up. You're a big step up. You can buy. You can get booze and shit. Yeah, I remember all that.
Yeah, get us some booze and some
you
popcorn.
Go get us some booze. We'll be over at your place. Yeah, there are like 4 of them will show up.
Hey.
Yeah, all of them underage.
Girls are practical.
Yeah. You're like 22. You're thinking you're king of the fucking world, man.
They just like that you're over 21 and you can buy them.
Yeah, you're over 21. Yeah. That's how it was, man. That's how it was.
They don't really like you for you. They like your ability to buy beer.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter in those days. It didn't matter.
I know.
Dudes were practical too. You're like, okay.
Rick Shaw said, I miss chasing women around video stores.
Yeah.
I don't.
They weren't women, they were girls. I wasn't quite a man. 22, 23, 24, around that. Yeah, like 19, 20. A couple years younger, you know.
All right, so where was I? We got distracted by Area 51.
Yeah, Area 51.
Because of
I didn't know he went to Area 51.
Yeah, he actually went to Area 51.
So he's full spectrum. He's trying to find aliens. And
full spectrum of something.
Full spectrum, yeah. He's aliens, pipe bombs, worried about the ATF. Fucking, yeah, okay.
He's got the whole fucking conspiracy package going on. Like all the conspiracy. If you got a conspiracy, he's gonna buy into that shit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and they're ex-military, so they do have some skills and some experience. So it's strange, but you know, fucking, I've seen the interviews with him. His understanding of fucking how to deal with fucking America's problems weren't really fucking. Wasn't the most efficient way to do it.
He's not as sophisticated.
No, simple.
Well, the thing about it is that he, like I said, I don't know if you were here when I said, but he had like an above average IQ. Like he wasn't a dummy.
They used ANFO and they made a bunch of shit. And they had technical expertise, really, and intelligence, but naivete, though. Very naive.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like in a lot of ways that's like they were good at things, like they could do things, but they didn't have a real sophisticated grasp on
fucking politics. And how society works and how they were going to react to this. They thought they thought this shit was going to catch on. Okay.
He really did. He really did seem to think that.
That they were going to be fucking like revolutionary, fucking the founders of a revolution. They'll be heroes later on in history. No, that's not how shit's going to work. Your movement has to win before history can be rewritten. And when you don't win, you're always written out as the villain. Okay. Other guys like this were written in as heroes. All America's revolutionary fucking heroes were guys kind of like this. They were breaking into judges' houses and tar and feathering them, shit like that. Nowadays they'd call that a terrorist. Fucking George Washington would have been a terrorist by today's standards. By the standards, I think the British just considered him a fucking terrorist. So you have to win, all right. And there's no way these guys were going to win. He should have thought they should have known that, but optimism, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
and he's misplacing it. He's expending energy on a tactic that's not going to work. High-profile explosions and shit on federal buildings. You're not going to fucking win hearts and minds by doing that. It's not going to become a thing. It's just not.
Well, shit, honestly, it spectacularly backfired because not only did everybody, like, immediately think that he was a monster and hate him, but they even actually talked about, like, so many people wanted to see him get executed that they had to have a fucking lottery.
Right.
Because they couldn't fit all the people that wanted to see him die.
Yep.
That's how much they fucking hated him.
He didn't control the media, and there's no propaganda outlets, so fucking... They can spin a narrative, they can say whatever they want about you, and you can't counter it. So they can turn public against you. And an average person during that time had no idea what this was. I remember I was there at the time. The average person had no idea what happened. He's just some dude that blew up a building and killed some kids. There's no, you know what I mean? The public isn't all that bright either.
Well, but the thing about it is
why he did it.
Is that... Well, yeah, but what I'm going to say is that, maybe he had a reason, and maybe he even had a legitimate reason, but, like, blowing up a bunch of innocent babies and a bunch of innocent people is not... That's not going to endear anyone or, like, bring anyone over to your cause.
I don't think he had a legitimate reason for blowing that building.
No, he didn't. I'm just saying, even if you did...
He had a legitimate reason to be upset,
mad,
but
sure.
But the response wasn't correct.
But a lot of people have legitimate reasons for being mad about a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that you can do shit like this.
Right. You have to fucking understand the tides of society. Fucking American society was pretty much happy during this period. They weren't going to turn against the government. They just weren't. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, nothing was really... No. I mean, a lot of people were mad about Waco and a lot of people were mad about Ruby Ridge. And not just, like, because, my fucking liberal ass, I was mad about that shit, too, because that was fucked up. A lot of people were mad about that. But it's like, that doesn't give you the right to go blow up a bunch of fucking innocent people.
Yeah, and you're not going to get... And if you think that you're going to get people to turn against the government because you did, or inspire them, it's not going to happen.
No.
Because this shit like this had happened already at a smaller scale, going out through the beginning of time in American history, and it didn't happen before. There was shit that happened in the 20s and the 30s that fucking was pretty hardcore, but you don't even... It's all forgotten because it really didn't amount to anything.
I still wanted to do a show about the Wall Street bombing that happened in the 1920s.
There were some Puerto Ricans that ran into the Capitol building and shot up a bunch of people, and that's forgotten. They were unfurled.
Yeah, I mean, shit
Puerto
like
Rican
that
flag.
just happens like all the... Yeah, it happens like all the time, and it's happened throughout history.
Yeah, so and people forget about it. President's assassinated, people forget about it. Just, So blowing up that building wasn't going to change anything. You have to change society, and you can only do that through culture. And that takes a long time. And the American people would have had to have reached a conclusion on their own because of the environment, that it was time to have a revolutionary change in the government, you know what I mean? Or in the system. That it's not something you can force into being by doing some kind of an attack. It's not how. It's never worked that way. Even in other countries, it never worked that way.
No.
So I don't know why they bothered. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, he was just mad, and he had anger, and he needed an outlet to put it, and he picked like the worst possible thing.
The thing is, it took him a long time to prepare for this. You would think that the anger would have subsided. They thought that shit was going to work. It wasn't just emotion. They thought it was going to work. That there was going to be a massive uprising.
Yeah, but they did think that. They
thought that. But no, I don't know why they would think that.
I don't know either.
There was no evidence to suggest that. All the evidence, if you look throughout American history, suggested the opposite. That the public would support the government, not go against it. It's just, the thinking was crazy.
Yeah, like I said, I don't really know what they thought they were going to accomplish.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen, obviously.
Yeah, this kind of attack doesn't work.
No. So yeah. We talked about, like I said, Area 51. That's where we get distracted. All right, so Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols start making a whole bunch of purchases in bulk of ammonium nitrate, which is fertilizer, in case you didn't know. And they were going to start reselling it to other survivalist type of dudes. They thought that the government was going to ban it, which didn't happen. But I guess like rumors were swirling around in those circles, so they thought, we're going to buy it all up. And...
Yeah, well, they were threatening. The government was threatening to ban ammonium nitrate.
Right.
And to put tags in it, which is like these little microscopic fucking pieces of silicate that had serial numbers written on it. I remember when they were talking about that. So they could track all that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it would never.
They never did that though.
No, it was all propaganda. They couldn't do that.
Ben said, wasn't it meant to be a signal, as per the Turner Diaries? Yeah, that other extremists would start bombing as well. Yeah,
that's what I said.
They thought, well, like I said, if you read, like, the first part of, like, the Turner Diaries, it's essentially what he was using for an idea. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like...
He's tripping.
This is kind of going to set off, like, this big fucking...
He's tripping. The Turner Diaries wasn't written by some kind of a fucking military genius or anything. That's not how revolutions happen.
But like I said, this is a guy he's not dumb, but he's kind of just gone down this one particular single rail, and it's like he's very single-minded, and he surrounded himself with other people who thought like that too.
Yes,
so
he's in a bubble.
He didn't really have anybody being like, bro, that's a really stupid idea. I don't think he did. It just seemed like everybody else that was around agreed with him.
I guess he thought the country was just ripe for an uprising. But
yeah, he was saying that back in 1992.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
You know what I mean?
It wasn't. I was around during that time.
Yeah.
Many of you were. Those were good times.
I mean, shit was pretty chill in the 90s.
Yeah, they were real good times. In general, people were happy.
Shit was pretty chill in the 90s. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, okay, so at this point, they start talking, him and Terry Nichols start talking about, we're going to blow up a federal building. Fortier, who was the meth head, he's like, yeah, I'm out. That's like a little too much for me. Now, he did tell his wife about what they were planning to do, though. So, basically, like I said, they weren't hiding it because Timothy McVeigh, like, wrote a couple letters to ATF, you know, and basically just saying, hey, we're coming for you, kind of motherfuckers. So there was that. So, like I said, they weren't hiding it. So, as we mentioned, he initially planned that they were going to go the individual assassination route. Lon Horiuchi, who we mentioned before, like the sniper from Ruby Ridge, he was one of the ones that was on the list. Janet Reno was on the list, obviously. There was also a judge, Walter Smith Jr., who was the guy on the Branch Davidian trial. So, you know, he had like a list of people he was like thinking about assassinating. But it just, I guess he felt like it would just be too difficult, you know, to go and assassinate people one by one. So he's like, well, it'd just be easier to like knock a bunch of them out at once. So we'll go somewhere where a bunch of them are, and then we'll just like blow it up and like, you know. So I kind of feel like he was going to do that.
And this is a dude that has a military background. He should know better, but direct kinetic action really is very limited, you know. It'd have been more effective if he just fucking hired a bunch of little kids, 8-9-year-old kids, to just handcuff themselves in a big long stream up around that building and make a big stake, you know what I mean? Non-violent shit that would like fucking Gandhi would do, you know. We're not moving, you gotta arrest us all. That would have been far more effective.
I mean, that is a lot more effective.
That's all you gotta do, yeah.
You know,
do some... You want to do some crybaby shit. You want a bunch of kids out there crying, you know.
Well, because like I said, if you want people to listen to your message, blowing up a bunch of babies is not the way to do it, because you're just immediately people, you can't get past that.
Yeah,
you just blew up a bunch of babies.
Yeah, they're going to turn on you.
So everybody's like, we don't even, like, even if you have a point, we're not going to listen to what you have to say now because you blew up a bunch of babies.
It's not instinctive for a soldier to think that way, where, you know, let's get a bunch of little kids and handcuff them together, and we'll handcuff ourselves to the door and cover ourselves in blood and cry and scream, because that comes off as kind of like weak looking, you know what I mean? So they didn't go to that, but that would have been far more effective.
Well, a lot more people would be sympathetic to your cause if you did that, rather than just like killing innocent fucking people.
He's not a civilian, so he can't think that way. But you know, I understand. He should have done it my way. Get a bunch of little kids and fucking scream and cry and kick, and put on a big fucking show and get the shit on video. And then get photographs of yourselves being arrested and make the fucking government look like bad guys and make everybody look like meanies, and that's how you get them, you know. That's far more effective.
Yeah.
Than to just blowing some shit up.
And I mean, Ben makes the point. He's like, the government blew up all those children at the Branch Davidian church. Yeah, they did, and that's why, and that's what's shitty, because it's like, that was shitty too.
That's why.
But him doing the same thing again doesn't make what he did like better.
Yeah. Now you've
done 2 shitty things.
Well,
Good job.
Now you've given the morality back to the fucking federal government that's your enemy. You want them to stay the murderers. That's why I was saying, get your kids down there and dress them up with blood and like they're burned up, like they burned up.
I mean, there's something to be said for taking the high road.
Yeah.
Because at least you have the moral high ground. You can say, well, you guys blew up kids at Waco or whatever. It's like, we would never do that. Make yourself the good guys. If you do the same thing as them, then you're as bad as they are. And they're what you're complaining about.
For some reason, these guys can't think that way.
You're just as bad as they are. Then
they're thinking in a paramilitary fashion, like tit for tat, equal. Is what they're
right.
Thinking.
But that's
not how you do it.
No,
because the audience is a bunch of civilians, so you're trying to play up to them and a bunch of lawyers, and you also want it so you cannot be prosecuted, or you're not prosecuted for anything serious, so you can come out and do it again and again and again and again. It doesn't matter if you win battles or firefights. All right. What matters is if you win wars. And wars are about endurance. Who endures? Who can last the longest? And if you're in prison, you haven't lasted. Or if you get killed, you haven't lasted. You just keep fucking with them and fucking with them and fucking with them and fucking with them. Yeah, they throw you in jail, but they can only hold you for 12 hours because you haven't committed a crime.
Because you haven't really done anything serious.
You keep doing it. You keep doing it.
You have to have patience. It's a long game.
Right, yeah.
I mean, if that's really what your end goal is, I kind of feel like the problem with a lot of these type of dudes is like even if they have legitimate points, which I'm not even saying if they do or don't, I'm just saying whatever their point is or whatever their end game is, they don't have the patience to like stick it out until the end.
Or the training.
Yeah.
He was
you really can't.
He was thinking of the way the army trained him. That's not that fight. The wrong fight.
Yeah.
Wrong fight. He should have been out there being a crybaby and just been a big old fucking and protester and chain himself to the door.
He would have got a lot more.
Yeah, you just keep doing
public sympathy.
Yeah, right.
And if you have public sympathy on your side, then you'll immediately have like a bunch of other people who will go to bat for you.
Yeah.
You blow up a bunch of babies, no one's going to go to bat for you.
Right.
So, whether you had a point or not, like nobody can hear you over what you did.
You don't want a bunch of grown men out there. You want women and children out there. Fucking protesting. And local college kids and shit like that. You want them to do it for you. You put a bunch of fucking ex-military fucking veterans looking all right-wing out there fucking crying. Nobody's going to buy that. You want fucking weak people out there. Or what we would consider... They'll be sympathetic to that. Oh my God, you're so oppressive. You know what I mean? That's how you do it. Okay. That's how they do it. That's why they do what they do. If you look at protesters. They're never going to have a dude like me out there protesting. They're just not. Nobody would buy it. Nobody's going to feel sorry for me.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
People would expect me to see me in riot gear with a cop or some shit like that. That's what they would... Cultural, that would be the expectation. You know what I mean? So I understand why they are. You all are just mortal people. You don't, you guys just do what you do,
Wait, who? Like you?
Yeah. I don't do what I do.
You're not moral?
No, I'm not moral. No, I'm not.
You're not.
Look at fucking Murder Hornets is in there.
Yeah. Okay, back. Had to go to Walgreens next door to get some bread. Gonna test out my new sandwich maker. I know. I gotta like. I bought some bagels yesterday so I could have them in our new toaster oven, but I haven't made one yet. I got cream cheese and everything over at Dollar General. All right, so where was I? Yeah, so they decided not to do the assassinations. They're going to go ahead with the bombing. So they crafted a very large ANFO explosive and mounted it in the back of a rented Ryder truck. 5,000 pounds. This bomb was of ammonium nitrate and nitromethane is what the bomb was made of. So 5,000 pounds in the back of the truck. So April 19th, 1995, Timothy McVeigh drives the rental truck to the front of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City at it's a little bit before the offices opened for the day. They opened at 9 a.m. So before he gets there, he parks it out front, and he has a 2-minute fuse. So he lit the 2-minute fuse, at 9 a.m. So the bomb went off at 9:02. Now, the explosion, and, if you Google it, you can see the pictures. It took out pretty much the front. I mean, it just like obliterated probably like a third to 2/3 of the building. It just like took off the whole like front of it. Ended up killing 168 people, including 19 children that were in the daycare center on the second floor. The youngest of those, I think, was a baby, like 4 months old. 684 people also injured, and 300 other buildings around that building also damaged. I'm assuming most of that was probably like broken windows and things like that. As I mentioned earlier, Timothy McVeigh said, "Oh, I didn't know that there was a daycare center in the second floor. I might have like picked a different place if I'd known that." As I said, I'm not really sure I believe that, because he said that later on. Terry Nichols actually came out and said, yeah, we knew there was a daycare center there and we didn't give a shit. And also, I've heard a couple of sources that said that they had actually toured the building, because I guess it was a federal building, so you could do a tour of it, you know what I mean? And they had actually done a tour of it like sometime before they had actually bombed it, so they were absolutely familiar with what all the shit was in there. So, basically, this is what he said. So, he had some biographers that were, like, writing a book about him. And they did, like, a bunch of interviews with him. He never did, by the way, express any kind of remorse of any kind for anything that he did. He just didn't. I mean, he wasn't sorry. One of the things that he said, and this is kind of going back to what you said earlier, like how he would justify it. He says, "To these people in Oklahoma who have lost a loved one, I'm sorry, but it happens every day. You're not the first mother to lose a kid or the first grandparent to lose a grandson or a granddaughter. It happens every day somewhere in the world. I'm not going to go into that courtroom, curl into a fetal ball, and cry just because the victims want me to do that." That's what he said. That he's like, oh, it's okay because people die every day. So, that's nice.
It's not quite what he said, but...
I mean, that's kind of what he said. That's the gist.
He's saying people die all the time. Fucking suck it up. That's what that's what he means.
I always kind of wonder... I was wondering this before because, I mean, like I said, he had a little bit of an incel vibe, too. He never really had a girlfriend or anything. And I kind of wonder if he'd had, like, a wife and a kid, would he have done the same thing? Would he have felt the same? Because maybe then he could have taken himself out of his own shoes and be like, what if that was my wife? What if that was my kid? Would he have had more empathy or no?
Maybe.
It's possible.
Well, he wouldn't have been so self-sacrificing. What would have happened? He's like, yeah, that shit's bad. What the ATF did to Waco, but that's not my problem. I got to take care of my wife and kids. Would have been like that probably.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he specifically said in one of the
he had a kamikaze mentality.
He did, yeah. I don't really think he didn't seem like he wasn't a very happy person.
Yeah.
He wasn't a very fulfilled person. He just seemed like a very, very angry, bitter person, and like he wasn't that old. I mean, you know what I mean? He was still like in his 20s when he did this, right? So it just kind of felt like I don't really think he saw any kind of like future, and this was like the way he was gonna go.
I think he saw himself as a patriot, as
he
real
did.
Patriotic.
He did,
and that he was saving the country from a burgeoning totalitarian regime that was trying to take over, and he was trying to stop it early. That's what I think he thought.
Yeah, that's from what I saw of what he said.
And that he was willing to die for this. And he's not lying, he fucking served during a time of war. So he thought he was helping the American people in the grand scheme of things. The thing is, though, is he's looking at this from a very naive point of perspective. Okay? That was a losing strategy. That mission wasn't worth it. He killed all those people and then got himself killed over over a mission that didn't make a difference. Not a positive difference. That didn't help his cause. He should have just protested.
Yeah.
Like I said.
Which, like I said, it takes
a lot more effective.
It takes longer, for sure.
But he would have had more time.
But, yeah.
He'd have had more time because, you're going to get arrested if you do this and that. But he hasn't committed a serious crime, so he's going to be out 12 hours later. Might be trespassing or something. And he should have gotten all that shit on video, and tried to get it played. There was no distribution back then. 'Cause he didn't have YouTube.
That's another thing.
So But you still could have caused enough stink where somebody would have eventually covered it, I think. Especially if it was just like a big scale protest. Which he could have, if they could build all those bombs, they could have done a big scale protest. Yeah.
Yeah, they were just expending their energies probably in the wrong areas.
Yeah, it was an inefficient way of doing it. I would have just fucking protested and pestered them and harassed and pestered and fucking sold videos of me protesting it at gun shows, you know, that kind of shit. You could have made money on the side. Here's fucking, look, man, 1999, I'll give you fucking 2 hours of me trolling the ATF. It's hilarious. You know,
I mean, much easier nowadays, to be fair, but, you know.
Nowadays, you could fucking sell it. But he could have sold that shit at gun shows. People probably would have bought it. Especially
they probably would have.
Especially if he was funny.
Yeah.
Think of how Angry Gay Pope. We've had him on the show. Him trolling Scientology. He was hilarious. I would just watch his show. If before the internet and had somebody said, look, man, fucking 1999, 1995, this video, 2 hours of this guy just trolling this cult, man, it's hilarious. And I saw a sample, I might buy something like that and watch it. Especially if there was and once you watch one, I'd probably have bought more of them.
Yeah.
You know? So I would have done something like that. See, a sense of humor, ridiculing people, it's hard.
I mean, people love funny shit. Everybody loves funny shit.
So much. Okay, you got to fucking apply this to other things. I think the most damaging thing, really, that ever happened to the cult of Scientology was that fucking South Park.
South Park, I was going to say.
Because it was true. And it was funny as fuck. And I think that spelled the end of Scientology as a business. That was it.
Just that little show.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't the only thing, but I think that was a pretty big part of it.
That brought it to the public's attention, the mainstream public's attention. It was fucking hilarious.
And they weren't lying. That's another thing. Like, all the shit they said in there was true. That was all true.
This is exactly what this really what Scientology believes. The UFO cult, the fucking Xenu.
So in a lot of ways, it's like, even though South Park is just like, you know, from a in the grand scheme of things, it's just like kind of a dumb cartoon show, but it actually had a really, really large cultural impact, and probably a positive impact too, because it got like more people looking into it and more people being like, "Fuck that shit," you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that was a really good thing for society as a whole.
These dudes, McNichols and
Nichols,
Terry Nichols and McVeigh, short-sighted. They were not far-thinking guys. Had they waited a couple more years, AJ and his radio show would have been around. They could have been guests on that. And then fucking primitive YouTube would have been out just a decade later. Not even that, really.
Yeah, when did YouTube actually?
YouTube came out, what, 2006?
2006, I want to say.
Yeah, so
I think
it's
it was
not
2006.
that. A decade later, you'd had YouTube, and all his material could have been up on that, and he wouldn't have been a criminal. You know, his reputation would have been totally different. So it was too hasty, man. And they're not thinking. This is not three-dimensional thinking. This is two-dimensional thinking, what they're doing. It's just dumb. It's not how you do retro bullshit, you know? Yeah. Just, if they just waited and played the long game, they could have fucking probably made a living off of fucking protesting ATF.
Well, yeah, I mean, they had like a fan base. Well, I mean, he was known like kind of on the gun show circuit and stuff like that. Like he sold stuff and he had booths and stuff. So like people knew who he was.
Would have been far more.
I don't think he wasn't famous or nothing like that.
It could have been later on.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that like even at the time back then, like he was kind of like in the scene. Like people saw him around. You know.
Yeah, you got to play the long game in all wars. War is the long game. It's not. As all civilians have figured out, warfare is not shock and awe. How many times did my army fucking pull shock and awe out and it didn't change a fucking thing? It's never resolved in some big fucking spectacular event. It's always the long game. Yeah.
Well, see, I kind of feel like people maybe think that just because, well, that's what makes the more exciting movies.
Yeah.
But it's like, really, it's just like boring shit.
Yeah, boring,
that makes the most,
resistance.
like long-term kind of boring stuff that makes the most difference, obviously.
It's the smarter
It's
way.
not just like some big
flashy
big
attack
one thing that
and
changes everything.
Yeah,
That very, very rarely.
That's only on television.
That very, very rarely happens. Very rarely happens. So after they did the bombing, what ended up happening was that in the rubble, they found the rear axle of the Ryder rental truck.
I remember the old axle story, man.
And it had the VIN number on it.
Yeah.
So the FBI were able to track this rental truck back to where it had been rented, which was in Junction City, Kansas. So the workers at the Ryder rental agency, they remembered what the guy that rented it looked like because it had only been like the day before. So they got with the FBI sketch artist. They did a sketch, which actually, if you see the sketch and then put it right next to like Tim McVeigh, it's actually a pretty good sketch. They did a good job. Like, it actually does really look like him. Now, Timothy McVeigh was kind of a dummy, but not that much of a dummy. He did actually use a fake name when he rented the truck, and that fake name was Robert Kling. He actually had a fake driver's license and everything. So they showed the sketch around town, and somebody that managed the local motel where Timothy McVeigh had been staying identified him. It's like, oh yeah, that was a guy that was staying here. Now, interestingly, not too long after the bombing, Timothy McVeigh was driving near Perry, Oklahoma, and he got pulled over by a state trooper named Charles Hanger. Now, he got pulled over because he was speeding, and also because his car, which was a 1977 Mercury Marquis, didn't have a license plate. So basically, McVeigh gets out of the car, and the trooper sees like a bulge under his jacket, and Timothy McVeigh is like, "Yeah, I got a gun," and the cop's like, "Yeah, I got a gun too." You know what I mean? Kind of situation. So basically, he got arrested. Timothy McVeigh got arrested for driving without plates, obviously, and for having an illegal firearm because he didn't have the the papers for it or anything like that. Because he didn't have, he had a concealed weapon, but it was like fake, you know what I mean? Or it wasn't legal in that state, or whatever it was. So, so he got arrested for that. And then they didn't know that he was the guy that had done the bombing, like the state trooper that arrested him. He was just arresting him because he didn't have a license plate and because he had like a concealed weapon that it wasn't legal for him to be carrying. And then later on, they found out that, oh my God, that's the guy that actually did the bombing. You know what I mean? Now, because when the bombing first happened, and I remember when it first happened too, because I was in my early 20s. I was like 23, I think, when this happened. And I remember everybody immediately thinking it was like Islamic terrorists, and people being like kind of surprised, like when they found out that it was the guy who it was. You know what I mean? Not everybody was, but a lot of people were. Because, like I said, we'd had, like, the World Trade Center bombing, not 9/11, obviously, but the one that happened in 1993, where they just blew up. Didn't they just blow up, like, it was, like, in the parking garage or, like, the lower levels, right?
What's that?
The first World Trade Center bombing.
Yeah, it was
the one that was
levels.
in the lower levels of it.
Yeah, and it didn't even fucking do anything to the building.
Not really. It didn't, like, do that much of a damage. But, yeah, I mean, it was a big deal at the time. But that was, like, Islamic terrorists, so everybody was, like, thinking along those lines. So everybody was, like, really surprised that it wasn't that. Because I kind of feel like when they caught the guy, they were just kind of like, oh, well, that's not what we were expecting. So there's that. So he gets hauled in. He's indicted on 11 counts. Conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction, use of a weapon of mass destruction, destruction with use of explosives, 8 counts of first-degree murder. That was just for the deaths of the law enforcement officers. I guess the other people don't count. But yeah, so basically, they had to do a change of venue. So they actually moved it from Oklahoma City to Denver, because I guess they were assuming that he couldn't get a fair trial in Oklahoma City, because everyone was a little bit mad, understandably. So, basically what they wanted to do, I guess he wanted them to do what they call a necessity defense. He wanted to argue, they said, well, we know we couldn't argue insanity because he was obviously very, very sane and very intelligent and was not, he had reasons for doing what he was doing, and he was very articulate about saying what those were. So, they're like, we couldn't do that. So he wanted to basically say, well, not self-defense, but he's like, I felt like I was in imminent danger from the government, so I was retaliating. That's kind of like so almost like self-defense. I kind of like feel like that was the route that he wanted to go. His argument was that imminent danger doesn't necessarily mean like immediate danger. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I thought they were going to come get me. That's kind of what he was. So he was trying to justify that he had like bombed the building because it was a reasonable response to like what had happened at Waco and what had happened at Ruby Ridge, right?
Yeah.
So that's what he was trying to argue. It didn't work. Spoiler alert. 1997, he was found guilty on all 11 counts. So like I said, even though 168 people in total were killed, the only murder charges brought against him were for the 8 federal agents who were on duty and were killed during the thing. I don't know why that was, but you know what I mean? That's what they did. So, basically he's like, so he gets sentenced to death, actually. Terry Nichols was also arrested and convicted, although he got a life sentence, so he didn't get executed. But the thing about it, though, was that, interestingly, they pretty much, I don't know if they expedited it, but they did the death penalty because he was convicted in, 97, and then they executed him in 2001, which is, like, pretty quick. Like, he did an appeal and stuff like that, but... You know what I mean?
Well, they were trying to get rid of him as soon as possible.
Yeah, and
they didn't want him to get any followers. I think that's what that was all about.
Well, and he actually asked. He wanted his execution to be televised nationally, but
they were like, nope.
But they were like, yeah, no. Although there was an unnamed internet company that they actually sued for the right to broadcast it, like the execution, but they didn't win. So he was actually, like, on the same kind of, they call the Bombers Row. He was on there with, like, Ted Kaczynski and all those kind of guys.
Yeah, they're high-fiving
Ramzi
each other,
Youssef and all that.
Yeah.
He was trying to convert him to Islam. That didn't work out.
It didn't work, yeah.
No. Well, McVeigh he later said he was an agnostic, but he actually took the Catholic last rites. I think he was, like, raised as an Irish Catholic.
Yeah.
He said he wasn't religious, but they said that he was kind of, like... going a little bit that way toward the end, but yeah, it was like kind of funny the way like the fucking bombers like trying to convert each other to their own fucking religions, like in fucking prison. Jesus Christ.
They're all high-fiving each other. You did a good job. Yeah.
They probably were, which is like really fucked up.
Oh,
because the thing about it was that when they executed Timothy McVeigh, like I said, like so many members of the public like wanted to come in and see him die that they had to do a lottery because they couldn't fit everybody.
Yeah.
But he didn't. They asked him if he had any last words. He had like some kind of poem that he wanted said, but other than that, they asked him if he had anything else, and he just wouldn't say anything.
It was
and
Hickory Dickory Dock. The chick was sucking my go ahead. Andrew Dice Clay poems and shit.
Oh God, I remember that. Whatever happened to that motherfucker?
He got old.
Well, but I mean, just like I wonder what happened to him. Like,
he did a couple movies, and then he didn't want to do that character anymore, and then people ignored him. He tried to be funny without that character.
And people were like, "Nope,
yeah,
you're only funny with that.
You're only funny
Sorry,
as that character. Yeah.
Go away, please."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that character wasn't that funny. I went back and saw it. Kind of fucking.
He really wasn't.
That funny.
I don't even think he was that funny back then. But it's not really my style of comedy. Like I was real into like stand-up comedy in the 90s. But I kind of like comedians that I don't like so much comedians that just like tell jokes, like set up punchline, kind of like a very obvious kind of joke. I like comedians that just like tell kind of rambling stories that just happen to be funny.
Like fucking Red Fox was like that, and fucking so was fucking Buddy Hackett.
I'm trying to think of like a lot of comedians I liked in the 90s. Like I love Eddie Izzard. I love I really liked Jake Johansson. Whatever happened to him? He was like funny as hell.
That Jewish dude was fucking hilarious. What was that?
Which one? I don't know who you're talking about.
I I forgot his name. You guys remember? He goes, when you say you look like a hooker, you say a woman looks like a hooker, she'll get mad at you. But it's a compliment. They actually, people have to pay. You know, tell a Jewish woman she looks like a hooker, she goes, thank you. It's just fucking funny. What was that guy's name? Fuck. You guys in the comment section know what I'm talking about. During the 90s. He was big in the 80s and the 90s. Dude was fucking hilarious. It wasn't fucking Mel Brooks. Man,
American Military 100 said Richard Pryor was a storyteller too.
Oh yeah,
yeah. See, I tend to like comedians that are more like that. I don't so much like. I mean, I've seen comedians that were just like set up punchline that were funny, but I tend to like ones that just like tell funny stories, like rather than it being like structured. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's see, what was up here? I think I missed some stuff. Jones Perkins said, my wife kept me from going crazy, I'll tell you that. People remarked about a year after getting with her that I was not the same person. And she replaced me with a better version of myself. Yeah, see, I was kind of wondering about that. That was just something that I randomly thought, because I kind of think about that when I read about these kind of guys or serial killers or whoever. I'm just like, you know, what circumstances could have been different that like the outcome would have been different? You know what I mean? And I just kind of wonder about Timothy McVeigh, like if he had finished college, for example, or if he had, you know, gotten a girlfriend or gotten married and like had a kid or something like that, like would he have gone down this route? He might still have, because, you know, people like that do that all the time. And shit, there's serial killers that have wives and kids too. So that doesn't preclude like you going down that path. But I'm just kind of wondering, like, in the context of the situation, like if it would have worked out the same. I don't know why I thought this was interesting. I'm always like really interested in people's last meals, like before they get executed. I don't know why that fascinates me so much. Because I'm just like, you're going to die. Like, what is the last thing you want to eat? You know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh my God, what would I pick? I don't know if I'd be able to pick.
No, it wasn't Lenny Bruce. It was, what was his name? Jackie, what was that guy's name?
Jackie Mason?
Jackie Mason. That motherfucker was so fucking funny, man. Jackie Mason. If you guys want to see some funny shit, man, look at Jackie Mason, man. Yeah.
I remember that guy.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
But Timothy McVeigh's last meal was 2 pints of mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Okay, yeah. I'd eat that too.
For your last meal, though?
Yeah.
I mean, I love mint chocolate chip ice cream. Don't get me wrong. That's probably my favorite flavor. Which shit, man. Now I have the same favorite ice cream flavor as Timothy McVeigh.
Funniest one that I ever fucking heard is they were executing this. They were gonna execute this one dude. He was mentally retarded, mentally handicapped, black dude. He'd killed some women or was accused of it. And he had his last supper, and he fucking saved the dessert. And they said, aren't you eating dessert? And he goes, no, I'll eat it afterwards. And they went, okay. Then they took him to go fucking get lethal injection.
I mean,
he did afterwards.
I'm not obviously you shouldn't be executing people that are mentally
he was, though.
handicapped like that.
Though.
I'm just saying that they shouldn't be.
I remember when they were talking about that. He said he was good. I think he had like a chocolate sundae or something, and they said, "Aren't you gonna eat your dessert?" And he's like, "I'll have it afterwards." And they were like, "Okay." And then they took him to go
I guess he didn't realize, injection. So I guess
he couldn't fully comprehend it. Yeah, spooky when you think about it, huh?
It is, but I mean, I guess like maybe. I guess it was better for him because he didn't actually know he was dying.
Didn't really know what was going on.
But that's still fucked up. They shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
Jones Perkins said, this comment will make you feel old if you read it. When the bombing happened, I was in 4th grade. And I remember it very well. I believe I was 9 years old. Yeah, I think I was 23. I was 23.
I was out of the Army. What was this, 96, I think?
95.
95? Yeah, I was out of the Army.
Yeah, I graduated from high school in 1990. So I was... Yeah, I was in college. But, yeah. I was 23.
Yeah.
23. I was in college still. But yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, Timothy McVeigh was executed in 2001, and they said that when he was executed, that he just had a completely blank stare, and he never expressed any remorse for anything that he did or nothing like that. And like I said, a lot of the family of the victims were there, like when he got executed as well. So you know what I mean. And they wouldn't let him be buried in a military cemetery. So they actually cremated him, but nobody knows like what they did with his ashes. The ashes they gave him to his lawyer.
Do it in the pond.
Probably.
Yeah.
Put him in the fish tank.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Kill the fish. All that carbon.
That'd be fucking gross. They kind of thought, they thought maybe, like, he said, I guess Timothy McVeigh was like, oh, maybe you can scatter them, like, where the building was. And everybody's like, no, we're not fucking doing that. Just, Jesus Christ. What the fuck are you thinking? So, yeah, they're not doing that. So there was that. So, I don't know. This is a fucked up story, and I'm kind of bumming myself out.
No,
like, just
some of the
reading
serial
more.
killer shit. The toolbox murderers.
Well, I know that.
More
Like,
of a
that
bumper
bums me
than-
out, too. Like,
Yeah,
all this
but-
kind of shit bums me out.
This is almost kind of like something from wartime. Just explosion, kills a bunch of people. You know,
Well, let's
fucking
make it any
buildings
better.
that-
It's still
yeah,
sad.
It wasn't torture, though, and it didn't have a sexual element to it where there's some innocent people were picked out to be fucking sexual targets from some fucking madman. It wasn't like this. This is more kind of just like a random fucking, almost like a fucking natural disaster in a certain way. These dudes thought what they were doing. I think they thought what they were doing was the right thing in the big picture.
Well, they seemed to, didn't they?
But no. That's the wrong fucking tactics to use. You know, where's your fucking strategy? Fucking, to win a war is a long haul. The last thing you want to do is to fucking get yourself locked up into a prison or get killed. No, just dumb. It's funny how intelligent guys can be so dumb. But for some reason they thought, because of that book, they thought that they needed some kind of high profile attack that was real flashy, that would make it onto the news, so they would get news media coverage. You don't need that either. And you just need time. And had they fucking been patient, you would have had YouTube and the internet. And then they could have just fucking disseminated information and their point of views. And they could have fucking told the stories of fucking how the Waco thing went down and how it was fucking the wrong thing to do, and that it was handled poorly, and then the whole fucking Ruby Ridge thing where they shoot a dude's fucking wife, really, and the dog, really, for nothing, There's a lot of ammunition you could use in an information war right there, and a kinetic attack, that's the last thing you'd want to do. Their thinking is just fucked up. Real fucking super conventional and retro and out of date. I don't even think that would have worked in the 20s. No, not at all. That wouldn't have worked in the 20s. Every successful revolution wasn't like that. Look how the Bolsheviks did it. They did it by taking over the damn train system of Russia. Everything went through Moscow. If you ran that Moscow fucking train fucking station, then you ran the whole country, because you could send soldiers and supplies everywhere you wanted. American Revolution fucking took fucking 20 years, all right, and fucking a bunch of people. They didn't just declare independence and it was over. No, that shit wasn't resolved until the War of 1812. So. Very limited understanding of human conflict and history. Too much Hollywood. High profile attack backfired on them. Dumb.
Sly says, I like what people say on their deathbeds. Like, either these curtains go or I do. You said Lord Byron. I thought that was Oscar Wilde, but I could be wrong. Allie McNair says, hi, you two. On a happier note, Happy New Year. I hope Pookie got the treats I sent her from Chewy. Oh, it was you that sent them. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, we did get those.
Who is this again?
Allie.
Allie, okay.
Thank you very much for those. She loves those.
Yeah.
As soon as I brought the box up, she was like...
She knows.
She knows this. She knew it was for her. She could probably smell them.
She knows that packaging.
She loves...
When she
sees
those things coming out, she goes, treats.
Yay, it's for
She knows
Pookie.
what flavor they are by what color they are.
Yeah.
She sees that turquoise. She goes, oh, that's tuna.
That's the good ones.
That's the good ones, yeah. She sees the red ones. She's like, oh, that's salmon. That's salmon.
Yeah, the salmon ones are pink. Like, she'll eat the chicken ones, which I think are kind of yellowish, right?
Orange.
Or orange.
It's an orange, little orange fucking stripe on a brown package.
Those ones are okay. Yeah. Like, she'll eat the salmon ones, but she's kind of like she's very grudging about it. But yeah, so what I had some notes about Turner Diaries, but we already kind of talked about that. Yeah, it's just it's a violent revolution that's a nuclear war and a race war.
Yeah.
And the end of it is a systematic extermination of non-whites.
Yeah.
The guy it's like I said, it's a fictional novel, but the guy's name is Earl Turner, hence the Turner Diaries, and he wants to kill Jews, non-whites, liberal actors, and politicians. Yeah, he's tripping. And all get murdered.
He's tripping. That's like something from some kind of sideways fucking Hollywood movie. That's not how reality works. You know?
And I thought this was interesting, too, because this book, not only was it the impetus for this bombing, but also for the 1999 nail bombings that happened in London. And also, do you guys remember this? The assassination of Alan Berg, the radio talk show host, the liberal atheist radio talk show host. They made a movie about it with Eric Bogosian called Talk Radio, I think, that was actually really good if you haven't seen it. But that happened in 1984. He got killed by Aryan Nation, skinheads.
Yeah. Race riot, damn revolution is fucking fantasy. Those guys are fantasizing. Usually, if you look at history, there's been racial wars, but that usually takes place if you look at the detail in countries that are very small. If that would happen in the United States, it would have been a local event, not nationwide. Okay. Mostly revolutions are mainstream. Successful revolutions are. They're mainstream. They involve everybody, the entire population. Race usually isn't a factor. Usually the main factor is economy, money, and living standards go away. So people fucking rise up because the government no longer serves them. So it's not this bullshit where your white people fucking wiping out now. It's everybody rising up against a fucking non-functional government. That's usually how it goes. And it's not apocalyptic either. Usually once it's over, it kind of normalizes within a few months after that because new regimes get in.
American Military 100 said, I love Talk Radio. It was such a good movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember really liking it. Totally forgot about that movie. I didn't know it was based on a true story. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it was based on the assassination of Alan Berg, which happened in the 80s. Yeah, he was killed by neo-Nazis because he was Jewish, and he was real outspoken about his atheism and about his liberalism on the air. And neo-Nazis didn't like it, so they came and shot him I think it was in the parking lot.
It was back in the 80s, wasn't it? Early 80s?
84.
84?
Yeah. 84 that was. Yeah, it was pretty fucked up. But it's a good movie, though. But yeah, so let me see. So remember the Fortier guy, the meth head?
Yeah.
So him and his wife, they were also considered accomplices because they knew about it. They weren't involved directly, but they knew about it beforehand. So they actually kind of got... and also the wife had helped Timothy McVeigh with the fake driver's license that he had used to rent the truck. So Fortier actually got off a little bit because he agreed to testify against Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols in exchange for a reduced sentence. And his wife got immunity, in that deal. So he got 12 years and fined $75,000. But he got released a little bit earlier. He got released in 2006 for good behavior and went into the witness protection program. So there was that. A couple of other things. I think somebody mentioned, Camp Guy mentioned, very early on in the show about the third person or whatever. Now, there was, some kind of stuff that there was, a John Doe number 2, because there was another... apparently, some of the workers at the Ryder rental truck place had described another dude that came in and rented a truck, and they did a drawing of him. So for a long time they thought maybe this was another conspirator, so they were looking for that person. But I think what they figured out later on was that was a completely innocent dude who had just come into the place to rent a truck the day before, and they just got the days mixed up. You know what I mean? You would do. didn't realize that it was like a different day or whatever. So they figured out who that dude was, and he didn't have anything to do with Timothy McVeigh. He just happened to like rent a Ryder truck like the day before, and they just happened to remember him. You know what I mean? There's also been some rumors, and nobody knows. I don't think anybody knows how much of this is true, but that Timothy McVeigh was involved with the Christian identity movement. Some people said that they had seen him at some of the little private meetings or whatever that they had. So I don't know how much of that is true or not. Because like I said, he did claim later on that he wasn't religious or that he was agnostic. But I have seen like some people like
Christian identity was kind of like Nazi.
Yeah,
I think it was.
Essentially. There are some witnesses that said that they saw him in those areas, or they know that he was in those areas at around the time that they knew that there was like meetings of that going on, and some people did say that they'd seen him.
Probably bullshit though.
But I don't know. I mean, their beliefs did kind of align in a lot of ways, but some people said that they saw him like associating with that group, but I don't know.
Maybe he went and checked it out or something.
I don't think that he was like. The thing about him is that, I mean, his psychology, he had a couple of like conspirators and stuff, but it wasn't like a real organized. He was very much like a lone wolf type of actor. Like he had a specific agenda, and he had like other people that were helping him like push this agenda, but it was mostly just like a handful of people. It wasn't like it was an organized movement to any great degree, I guess. You know what I mean? Ben says they went to the Elohim City FBI skinhead church, please. Yeah, that's what I heard. I was like watching one of the documentaries about that early on. But yeah.
Even though McVeigh wasn't religious, he was more closely related in terms of like just character and ideology and just the character of way he was. Had he been Christian, he would have been one of these I'm going to stop the mark of the beast kind of guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That they're going to come and take over and they're going to wipe out the Christians and I'm going to stop the mark of the beast. That he was even
that's what I meant.
He was a dude like that.
Yeah.
Even though he was secular. He saw himself as a hero trying to stop a fucking totalitarian government taking over and fucking taking everybody's guns, and that they were going after Christian groups first, and they were gotten away with Waco, and that he wasn't going to let them get away with it, and that he was going to show the American population that you could fight them, and if you fight them, then they'll run, and then we'll straighten it out and we'll win, and I'll go down in history as a revolutionary hero, after my death. He was one of those kind of guys.
Yeah.
But no, it was a miscalculation. This is the fantasies of a young man. That's not how things actually work, and that's not how revolutions work, and that's not how that's not how you fight any kind of entrenched institution. It takes a long time, and usually violence is not what you want. That's not what you want. Propaganda is what you want, or lawyers, legal attacks and fucking propaganda attacks to try to change public opinion, to get them defunded, that kind of stuff. That's how you do it. It's a lot easier, and you're not breaking any laws.
Yeah, I mean, and you're not killing innocent people that didn't have all to do with whatever you were mad at.
Yeah, I mean, Sly is mentioning the fucking French Revolution. Yeah, that's one way it can go, but that actually is the hard way. The easy way is what happened in the Soviet Union. It's there 1 minute, and a day later, it's just gone poof, because people don't want to show up to work for it. They no longer believe in it. All right, and they go that way too. Just the government's there, and then a couple days later, its army's gone, the bureaucracy's gone, nobody believes in it, its money is gone, the banks are gone, just overnight. I watched that shit happen. I was on duty when that shit happened. We couldn't believe it. It's just, the Soviet Union, we thought this thing was just a megalithic powerhouse. We were scared of this thing. We were training to fight it. And just in a matter of a few days, it no longer existed. It just evaporated without a shot fired. You know, and they go that way too.
Yep, it can happen.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we've been going 3 hours.
Yeah, and we got food to make, man. I got
Yeah, I
pizza
was
down
gonna
there waiting.
say I'm pretty hungry. Well, I was waiting for you to
Okay.
quit talking.
She's blaming me. She's blaming me, and it's a show. She talks through the whole show.
I didn't talk through the whole show.
Okay. You wrote that through the whole show. Okay, I ain't gonna fight her. I know it's just I'll lose ground if I sit here and try to reason with her.
Well, and then you'll just go on longer and longer, and then I'll get blamed for like making it
right.
like last longer.
All right, tell you what, Jam.
What?
You got anything you need to plug or anything?
No, I'm just gonna.
Okay.
I don't know.
Shut that shit.
I mean, I guess I could just go to our Patreon and do that shit.
Yeah, we always requiring more patrons.
Like, share, subscribe,
Yeah.
do all that stuff. If you
Yeah.
haven't done that, you guys mostly do that.
Yep.
I'm just saying. Just reminding people in case they don't. But yeah, so I guess that's it. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll be back Friday night for the Sidetracks show. So that should be like more fun because we won't be talking about terrorists. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
we'll probably end up talking about terrorists anyway. You know how we do. But yeah, so it should be more fun and more entertaining, and it'll be New Year's Eve. So you know that'll be kind of exciting because it's kind of like a holiday. All right, so thank you everybody for dropping by and hanging out with us this evening, and thank you for your super chats and all of the discussion. And we'll see you guys again on Friday night. Good night.